Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special, all caped up and nowhere to go episode of Monster Party.
A monster party! Blah, blah, blah. Monster party! Greedy, welcome!
Although he never said that, but blah, blah, blah.
1, 2, 3.
Nice.
Oh, man.
Oh, good times, right?
Yeah, speaking of good times, who are you, sir?
I am a good time. I'm a party in human shape. I am Matt Weinhold.
I'm Shawn Sheridan.
I am Larry Strode!
And I am James GONIS.
Just regular old James GONIS. Van GONIS.
But I couldn't imagine the show with any other James GONIS.
No, we love you. I love all you guys. I'm always happy to see you, especially these days. So,
well, yes, and you know, I love it. We're kind of revisiting something today.
We are for this episode. Yeah. This is our first volume.
Yes,
our first volume of this episode. We did way back when the podcast was really just starting.
Yeah, back in the 1950s, I think.
Oh my God! Yeah,
well,
we were on Kinescope. Yeah,
2013.
Yes, we were sponsored by Blue Coal.
But it's such a huge topic. I can't believe it's taken this long to revisit.
I know.
True.
I know. And it was a great episode. It was fun. And but it was in the days when we would do like 45 minutes or something.
Yes.
And we had Dana Gould, and Dana Gould is great. And he's been back a number of times, and he's a kindred spirit, and he loves vampires as much as we do. So that was fun. But, over the years, our episodes have grown and become actual parties.
And Matt, wouldn't you agree? We just scratched the surface.
We did. That is correct.
Fingernail scratch.
Yes, we did.
Fangs scratch.
Our fangs just scratched the tip. Just the tip went in to this episode. Boy, this sounds wrong. Okay, here we go.
What is this? What is this tip amazing episode?
Please don't rub it in. Oh, there I go again. Okay, here we go. The topic for this episode is Vampires, Volume 2, The Vampire Strikes Back.
Vampires, Volume 2, The Vampire Strikes Back. Blah, 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 blah.
There you go, the blah thing. Which, does anyone really know, by the way, where that came from? It must have been a cartoon, right?
Or a cartoon, or maybe an early comedian, like parodying.
Like somebody
maybe
did it.
Because even Lugosi never did that.
Milton Berle did it. Put on a cape on Halloween and said blah blah blah, and then everybody copied.
If any of our listeners know, please let us know, because I'd like to know the origin of that tacky vampire parody.
Tacky and hacky.
But Shawn, I think for this topic, we need someone who knows just as much about vampires as we do. Don't you think?
Don't you think,
if not more?
James,
if
yes.
Not more, indeed. Yes, we have a very, very special guest. She is a native of Dayton, Ohio, and was Playboy's
Get out of town.
Playboy's May 1990 Playmate of the Month.
What the
F? I first became aware of her when I saw her hosting Playboy TV's Newsfront. And I remember, and this was like 30 years ago, and I remember thinking, wow, they found a playmate that's really smart and articulate to do this. Well, she does have a degree in theater, so I'm sure that helped.
Nice.
Some years later, I had the privilege of working with her on many occasions. She's hosted live coverage of countless Playboy mansion parties for Playboy.com. And it wasn't until years later when she walked by our booth at Monsterpalooza in Pasadena that I discovered she's into horror and monsters.
Nice.
And she was even in a Tales from the Crypt episode.
A great one, too.
Yeah. She's co-hosted at least 2 podcasts, Dating Intelligence and The Real Deal, and has most recently pursued her passion for archaeology and osteology, the excavation of bones, which is perfect for tonight's topic.
Perfect, yeah.
Let's welcome to Monster Party, Tina Bockrath.
Tina Bockrath!
So excited. Thank you.
Oh,
welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so excited that you're here.
I'm so
me
excited
too.
to speak with kindred spirits
Yes.
for the love of horror.
For sure.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it just it goes back to when I was a kid. So I've always had this love of horror films and scary movies and kind of the connection between that and archaeology, which, kind of brings us all together.
Sure.
Do you remember as a kid watching maybe, was there a horror movie that you remember seeing on TV or
It was
something?
like on TV or the theater that you first, what got you hooked?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, I've always had this interest, like since I was a small kid, it was kind of like a moth to the flame, if you will. So as you know, when we were kids, there were like 3 or 4 channels.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Oh, we know.
Right.
Yeah.
And you would watch, there was Dracula with Bela Lugosi, or like the werewolf movies with Lon Chaney Jr.
Yep.
Remember like Maria Alpensaya, who was a Hungarian.
Sure.
You have the mark of the wolf. You guys can do that accent better than me. But I've always had that interest. And then it wasn't till much later when I got married the second time. And my husband, we traveled just enough. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do with my life? I went back to school for archaeology classes and ended up in Romania. So, but it was because of that interest in horror films. And, you can go to Romania and study bones in Transylvania. But yeah, there's something about being scared for me. And I think they've done studies on psychology of people that are attracted to that horror genre, if you will, which obviously you guys have too.
Yeah, I think it's an outlet,
Yeah.
It's cathartic in many ways, at least for me.
But Tina, did you scrounge around Castle Dracula? Did you look for anything there? Or
what was super cool? So when I went to Transylvania, we got to go to Bran Castle, which they thought was used in Bram Stoker's book. And then I went to Ponari Castle, which was like Vlad the Impaler's real castle, which is all just ruins now.
Right.
So when you go there, you have to climb 1,480 steps to get to the top.
Wow.
Oh, Matt, hear that?
Cool.
I don't think you're going anytime soon.
Oh, I'll do that.
Yeah.
I just climbed Yosemite.
Right.
Vampires had to stay fit back then.
Yeah.
Well, when you live forever, you can work up your thigh muscles and calves.
Exactly. But when you really study where these origins come from of vampires, it's pretty interesting. I mean, there's something, these movies don't come from nothing. There's an origin to the vampire story, which starts in medieval Europe. And it's so fascinating to me. So,
did it start with the hickey, the invention of the hickey?
No.
Hickey? Yeah, not so much. I don't think so. I think it was more because people didn't really know how bodies decompose.
Ah.
And the superstitions around bodies.
Oh my God, there's so much superstitions around medieval Europe. It's just insane. But it's so fascinating and so creepy that there's those of us that are just drawn to it. You know what I mean? Kind of like a moth to the flame. So
Yeah. Tina, in Famous Monsters magazine back in the 70s, there was an ad. There was an ad where you could send away for a little bit of dirt from Dracula's castle.
I wanted to get that. It was like a little pendant shaped like a coffin. I wanted to get it so badly, but it was too expensive.
Yeah, it was like $5 or something like that, which might have been like $1,000.
Tina, you could have taken a whole bunch of dirt and just put it in your pocket.
I'm sure that's what they did when they.
You know that's the.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But I remember one of my earliest memories. Do you remember the movie The Howling?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I remember seeing the ad in the newspaper for the guy that did the makeup and all the special effects.
Rob Bottin.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I thought, God, he's so hot. And so I got that article. I couldn't have been more than, 6 or 7. And that was one of my earliest memories of loving the horror movie, just a whole genre.
I still have kind of a crush on him myself.
Did you saw The Howling at that age? Because there's some kind of sexual stuff in that.
Yeah, there was. I do. Yeah, I do remember that. But I'm trying to think of the earliest. I'm trying to think of the earliest movie I saw. Of course, most of them were on TV, like Dracula, The Mummy.
Right.
All the Universals.
The Mummy stuff. I'm just obsessed. because I've been
of course.
Egypt.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But
Sure.
the early ones, but Brendan Fraser.
Oh, those. Yeah, see, I like those ones. I know
Oh.
maybe Matt's not a big fan, but see, I really
like the
love
first
those
one.
ones.
I like the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the
After
first
that,
one.
When
I
it
don't
starts
consider
to-
it a classic, but it's
you know how
entertaining.
that thing that happens when you have a movie and it's a success because of a certain kind of formula. They got the right balance of humor and horror. And that was the first one. And then they try to replicate it.
Yeah, it didn't work.
And it's always a mistake.
Hey, but I like the kid. I liked the evil, the Oxymum, the black character. So Oxymum, yes, I loved her. So don't give me,
How can you not love her?
Don't give you
when
what?
she walks
Larry?
out in her
she walks with that sexy top. Yeah, yes. Show me, Tina. Show me.
Yeah,
That's
Well,
right.
Cut out that part of it and send it to me. Make it a GIF.
Yeah.
So Tina, when you visited Romania, did you come back with any souvenirs of those?
Oh.
Did you?
So when you go to Panari Castle, Count Dracula's real. It's just the remains,
the ruins.
Yeah, no, thank you. So when you get up to the top of the 480 steps, they have actual vampire bats in lucite that you can purchase.
No.
Oh, yeah. And everybody's like, I got one of the bigger ones, and everybody's like, well, you can just go on Amazon and order it. And I'm like,
no, come on.
No, it's not the same.
1,480 steps. It's not the same if you just order it from Amazon.
No,
so every time
I am so
I take
with you.
Great pride in and he's got the teeth and the hole. It's super cute. Yeah.
That is where were girls like you when we were growing up?
Right?
That is a very good question.
Thank you.
I mean, were you like over in the corner or something, or
probably? Probably.
Yeah.
I'm still a little bit of a freak. I'm not gonna lie. So
perfect. Well, all your talk about archaeology made me think. Another episode we could do is archaeology and horror.
Oh yeah.
When you think about it, there's so many films that I can think of that relate to that. The beginning of The Exorcist and
Horror Express.
Horror
Express.
Yeah.
One of my friends gave me a book for my last birthday about ghost stories and how there's this little bit of truth in these stories, and then all the stuff gets made up. Same thing with archaeology. There's that little bit of truth, and then we take it. So like when I went to Egypt for some years ago, and we went on this tour, and our tour guide was like, scarabs don't come to life. Mummies don't come up. And I'm like, oh, well,
damn.
I want to go home now. Boo. These things all have some truth to them.
Sure.
So it is kind of.
So does that mean that the Ark of the Covenant isn't going to make everybody's face melt?
No, unfortunately.
You know what? If you heat it up and then stand really close to it,
it might.
It might. It might.
This discussion of archaeology is fascinating.
Yeah,
but tonight, I know. But tonight we can talk about vampires.
Yes.
Tina, what is one of your favorite vampire movies?
Okay, so I have to start somewhere. So this is going to lead me into something else. So I'm going to start with Nosferatu.
Excellent choice.
Yes, nice. Perfect.
Thank you. Nosferatu, 1922.
Yes.
And I don't know, did you guys know? And I didn't really know. I mean, I knew a little bit. But it wasn't until I started researching. Do you know there are some anti-Semitic tones to this? Did anybody know?
Wait a minute. In a German movie?
1922, 20-something years before World War II. Did you know that?
What I've heard was the initial look of the Nosferatu, the vampire character.
Yes.
Murnau wanted it to look like a rat.
Yes.
And so, but some people interpreted that as, the big nose and the little fangs.
The hook nose, bulb.
But it's like, again, you could apply it to, it's supposed to be rat-like. And in fact, I think there's a sequence where there's all these rats, crawling over the coffins.
Yeah.
And stuff.
It's like he's like part of he's almost a plague, he brings the plague with him.
Right down to his fangs.
Tina, the first time I saw this film, get this. So black and white silent film. I saw this when I was 9 years old at Bellarmine Summer Camp. And it was the one time
summer
that they
camp?
Summer camp.
Vampire summer camp.
No, it wasn't the vampire summer camp. Will you let me tell the story? So It was summer camp. It was the one night in the summer that they let the kids spend the night. And so we're in this big gymnasium. And the counselor showed us this film. And I tell you, I was terrified. And it got to a very spooky moment. Then all of a sudden, out of the blue, these crazy, and I know it was high school students, but at the time I didn't know it. These guys dressed up in white sheets with big fangs and like pumpkin heads. They came out and went, "Ah!" and ran through the auditorium and freaked all us kids out. And we were like screamed, and some kids, let's go chase them. And I'm like, no,
you don't want to mess with the clan. No,
Matt. It was like, like ghosts, like vampire.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that's a good, memorable way to see that first movie.
Yeah. Did you like that they did that? Because it's sort of fun. It's like it's like William Castle. It's like a Mergo.
A 50-50, Matt. 50-50. I was
going to say, how old were you? That's freaking frightening.
I was 9. I was 9, and it totally freaked me out. I was fascinated by it. But this was the first time I saw the film, and it's a silent film. Yeah. And believe it or not, the group of kids, and there were like 50 kids, all my age. It was like everyone was quiet watching it. Once the film starts, it's really creepy, and it's really well done. Murnau did an amazing job with his use of shadows and light. And
it's also like Nosferatu, just Max Schreck as playing him. I mean, he's just so unnatural looking and so hideous. It still works because it's just the 20s. So the idea of the classic kind of romantic Gothic vampire in the form of Bela Lugosi, he can
solidified.
He started. I mean, right in 1931 when that Universal film came out. Everybody thought of vampires then as that way, as the urbane kind of like in the tuxedo vampire. But before that, like Nosferatu and even London After Midnight, which is like the kind of lost original Chaney film, he looked very different and very, very bizarre and kind of scary and with like his animal teeth. But it wasn't until Lugosi it's amazing how influential that Universal film was, because
Nosferatu, I think, is actually a way scarier movie.
Scarier
than Dracula.
I do agree. It's more visceral in a way.
Sean, I don't think people realize this. I think there is a reason for it too. What a lot of people don't realize is when Murnau made Nosferatu, originally he wanted to do Dracula,
right?
But they didn't want to pay the rights to Bram Stoker's estate.
And they got in trouble, right?
What happened was they make the film. The film is somewhat successful, and the Bram Stoker estate sued. Right. And what a lot of people don't know is they won.
Yeah, for a long time it was unavailable.
And what happened, Tina, was as punishment, they had to destroy every print. So let's say it had 2 hours to get out there, and prints were destroyed. The reason why it exists today is because the film had been sent out internationally. There were maybe a couple prints, maybe 3, that were someplace else. An order had gone out that said, these films must be destroyed. Yeah. Well, whoever it was that held on to them, they held on to them. Copies were made. Yeah. And today, and the funny thing is, Prana, the production company that made it, they went out of business. They filed for bankruptcy. They lost everything. Right. And so they had no ownership of this because they didn't have the rights to own it in the first place.
Oh, interesting.
The funny thing is Nosferatu is in the public domain now.
Yeah.
So
I have a print of it on film, on 16 millimeter film.
I'll tell you really quickly what interested me. It's because my husband's a composer. He does music for film and TV shows. And the music in Nosferatu, it was supposed to be silent music that you would just play. So there's no real existing music for the movie. And there's been all these takes from all these different composers.
Different
which I love.
That makes sense according to what you said. Yeah, because it's all been destroyed.
And it's funny. What people need to come away from this episode is understand that when we say silent films were never silent. When you went to the movie theater, they always had a piano player or a violin. Someone was playing. Music. Somebody always played music. So you were never watching a theater with a screen with just the flickering of the projector. There was always music, and people get lost on that.
you look at a silent film today and they're black and white.
Yes.
But they weren't even black and white back then. They would tint various scenes. So a nighttime scene would be blue, the daytime would be yellow. Yeah. And so, there's an art form. When people say that they don't like silent movies, it's like, well, you haven't been presented right, exactly. They haven't seen it in the proper way.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's important. It would be great, go to a revival house and check out Nosferatu.
I have seen, I think it was maybe the New York Theater years ago. I think I remember seeing it in the theater, and it was great. And they had some
beautiful. Yeah. Like to me, it's like the perfect example of German expressionism. It's just that and Caligari, I think, are both.
Oh yeah. There are images. I mean, the stills of those movies. They're just iconic horror images. I mean,
just as a picture in the pictorial history of horror movies.
Yeah.
There's the one that comes to mind, Sean, it's the shadow of, you see the railing of steps going upstairs and you see the shadow of Nosferatu. And just the way his hands, Tina, the hands with the long nails, the photo of that. And it's like, he's not in the shot. It's a shadow. Yeah. But how creepy is that?
Yeah. So simple, but so effective. Yeah.
Yeah, it's what you don't see. And the reason I bring up Nosferatu is because recently, I don't know if you guys have watched yet, Blood Red Sky.
It's on my list of films to talk about tonight.
Oh,
loved it.
Is this a new movie?
Yes. Netflix.
Tell me.
Netflix.
Tell us, Tina.
2021.
Yes. And I'm just going to tell you, I didn't even know till I saw this. 50 million members of Netflix watched it on the first 4 weeks.
Yep.
It was the most successful German original title so far to date.
Right.
Let me tell you, that shit scared me. I was in my bed with the cover. I'm like, oh my God. My husband's like, what are you watching? I'm like, vampires on an airplane. Vampires on an airplane.
It's basically Die Hard on an airplane.
Yes.
Only instead of Bruce Willis, it's a vampire.
Yes.
Correct.
And the interesting I'm going to give it a little disclaimer for anyone that's listening to this. If you're going to watch it, I don't want to be a buzzkill.
Spoiler alert.
Movie, one of the lady that gets on the plane, when she turns into a vampire, I swear to God, it's like you're looking at Nosferatu. Totally took the character.
Is the film done straight, or is it kind of comedic?
No, it's straight. It's straight.
It's straight.
Good.
And the interesting thing is they kind of, as far as vampires go, they kind of take on the play that if you're evil and you take over as a vampire, you're going to be more evil.
Okay, so it accentuates your bad.
She has some sort of malady that's causing this thing.
Yes.
And, she's trying to, there are these hijackers on the plane, and she's trying to fight them, but at the same time protect her son.
Exactly.
And so she is trying to hold on to her humanity all through the film to be able to not succumb to the dark side.
Yes.
Meanwhile, you've got this complete asshole guy. Tina, what an amazing performance, right?
Oh, that guy, I hated him, but he's the one that made me, like, with my covers on my back. It's like, oh my God. It was seriously.
Okay, I'm gonna check it out.
It's so much fun.
It's so great.
And it's a very satisfying screenplay all the way through.
Absolutely.
That just shows you, like, look, we're just talking about Nosferatu, and, back in 1922, and then, like, 2021, they can still make a fresh, cool idea of a vampire movie. That just shows you longevity. Yeah. I mean, looking back again when prepping for this episode, it's like decade to decade, it's amazing to see how the vampire genre, is always there and it changes, but it's always resilient.
And you can slightly tweak it just enough to fit or make it interesting, so it's not the same thing over and over.
Right.
Well, yeah, and the things that they can use. So, is it the sunlight still work? Does the cross still work? The tropes.
And that's what I love about that, and even zombies too. I know Larry will disagree with me to a certain extent, but I don't have any problem with any rules for a vampire as long as they're set up and consistent.
Work.
There are vampire movies where the vampires can walk in the sunlight, and that's fine as long as it's established. When it's all over the place, then I get nuts. I don't like it at all.
It goes with the times too. Like, in the 30s, you had, like I said, Lugosi Dracula. Then the 40s, Universal was milking there are horror films, and you had Son of Dracula, House of Dracula, but there's always that kind of urbane
Condo of Dracula.
Yeah. But then you got into the 50s, you did it was a lot more modern day vampires. Like you had vampires transformed by science, guys, or you had actually sci-fi movies like The Thing or Not of This Earth or The Terror from Beyond Space, which were aliens or monsters that had vampire-like qualities.
Sure, right.
Blood. So that was adapting to the atomic age of the 50s because everything was sci-fi. So they were still doing vampires in a way, but it was just doing a little different take on it, which is really cool.
And then using the vampire as a metaphor for addiction. So in films like Martin, George Romero's Martin, which I don't know if you've ever seen that, but that's so great. And Ganja and Hess.
Yeah.
Where it's an addiction. It's this thing that you're trying to manage, and that addiction can easily get away from you and turn you into something that you thought you could control,
Right.
Which kind of takes me into my next that you guys talking about future. So one of my favorite vampires ever. I love him so much. Every time I think about him, Christopher Lee. You cannot have a vampire. Yeah. Christopher Lee is like come on, the best.
No,
I think about when I was in Romania, going from Hungary to Romania through the Carpathian Mountains, and I see him, in the carriage and those bloodshot eyes, and God, he's like, seriously. I mean, there's a lot of people that have done vampires, and we'll get into, but God, I love him.
He's my single favorite Dracula.
Yes, for sure.
Well, that was a game changer for sure, because 1958 Horror of Dracula. Nobody had seen Curse of Frankenstein and Horror of Dracula, gothic, lush, in color horror films.
Violence,
just blew people away. It really was a paradigm shift. I mean, nobody had. They were still used to the Lugosi, and that was a game changer.
But I'm thinking Dracula, Prince of Darkness.
Yep.
Where that was the whole when they went to the castle. I mean, it's kind of typical, but he was handsome, but not so much. He wasn't like.
He was scary and seductive.
He could do both, which is great. Yeah,
and what I loved about those movies too is that in a lot of them, he barely says anything.
Yeah.
Right. And so the later sequels, he talked a little much. He's when he was getting tired of doing.
Well, when he's like a Bond villain in Satanic Rites of Dracula,
pretty much. Yeah. But he's great.
What about Jesus Franco's Count Dracula?
Count Dracula,
1970.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
which was supposedly like the first faithful,
accurate,
where he has the mustache.
He does look the part.
I don't like the mustache. I'm not into the molester mustache.
Yeah. He also directs porn.
Yeah.
The best thing about that movie is Herbert Lom as Van Helsing. Because he's pretty good as Van Helsing.
That movie is for me one of the more tolerable Jess Franco films to watch. It's not bad for a faithful adaptation. It still has its issues, but it was, and I think Lee liked it because he was actually doing quotes from the book, and he was really doing the character.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, considering the book, what do you think about the Bram Stoker's Dracula, that film?
The Coppola film?
The one, Oldman.
Yeah. I like that movie.
Oldman.
So you're talking about Coppola, Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
It was good, but at the same time, I was like, God, there's so many other Dracula films to talk about, which is why I was like,
Well, sure, right.
That one was a big deal, though, at the time when it was being made. It was there was a lot of publicity about it. And, every time I see it, I like it more because I really appreciate it a lot more now because it was so much in-camera effects. It was pre-CGI. He really was going all out with Baroque, Gothic, using every trappings of filmmaking to make it. And I thought I do enjoy it a lot.
It's visually stunning, I think.
Yeah. Yes, it has this week. I mean, Keanu Reeves is not miscast. No. He's definitely miscast. But everybody's trying, though. And I like it. There's some great makeup effects, some good gore.
Music score is good.
It's funny. Sean says, Sean, you just brought up two things that kind of wrecked it for me. I appreciate all the in-camera stuff. There's some stuff that I didn't like that he did, creative choices. But it's like, I thought Keanu Reeves totally miscast, but also Winona Ryder. I mean, I didn't think she worked either. I'm sorry.
No, I agree with you.
No. Everyone jump on me. Look.
No, I agree with you.
She's great in Beetlejuice. She's great in Beetlejuice.
Totally agree with you.
Give me like a Helen Bonham Carter or someone that's more.
She's no good.
And
sorry.
Yeah. So that really bugged me. Okay.
Yeah.
And, I remember, what Sean says about there's a lot of publicity. I remember Winona Ryder saying, oh, yes, Gary Oldman, he's the king of pain because, if I have to sit in the makeup chair for 20 hours getting my bat costume on, I'll do it because I want to be the vampire bat, and it was almost like when I heard this, I'm like, you're like criticizing this actor for wanting to put on the makeup and stuff. And I didn't like that either.
No.
So
Anthony Hopkins is not, I think, well cast either.
Matt,
really?
It's funny.
I don't mind him.
No, I agree with Matt. I'm going to agree with you because on paper, it sounds like a great idea.
Yes.
I don't know if it was the direction he was given,
or he might have been. Yeah.
Or he was tired.
He's too over the top.
And also
everything is a little bit over the top. The costumes are a little bit over the top. The whole thing is a little
everything
bit
is hyper real. Yeah. I mean, there's literally totally stylized.
I think it's a taste thing. It didn't really work.
But that's the thing. Like at first, I think early on, I did bump on that, but now I kind of appreciate it because
when I read back about why they did the movie, like Winona Ryder and like Gary Oldman, they did it because they wanted to work with the director.
Right.
I get. But don't you have to really kind of be into that part a little bit? It can't be just because, I want to work with this director, right?
Bring your A game.
Yeah, exactly.
Research the accent.
But look, if you're a producer, I got to put my little producer hat on.
Okay.
You're going to say, Keanu Reeves, Winona Ryder? Oh my gosh, these are big names. Of course we'll put them in this film. It's like you're casting them because they have a big name, but they're like so miscast in the film.
Right.
Yeah.
There are other big names you could get.
Look, I don't hate it. I have a love-hate relationship with it. There are some
I think I'm with you.
Yeah.
I agree. Once again, I agree with you, Larry.
Oh my God. Has hell frozen over? Oh my God.
But I would say that talk about the resilience and variety of vampire movies. That same year that Coppola's Dracula came out, he had two other films. He had John Landis's Innocent Blood and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie. Oh,
right.
Three completely different vampire movies the same year, but all of them kind of, to a point, I think were successful. But so everybody was still experimenting by the 90s with different ways to do it.
And you can still, you can do the teenage genre, Buffy and the Vampire Slayer, so my next one, which I love, and we'll talk about because there's two different, Fright Night.
Well, you'll get no argument from us.
One of our favorites.
One of the
Fright
greatest.
Night with Chris Sarandon and Fright Night with Colin Farrell.
Well, right. But look, the first one that you mentioned with Roddy McDowall, that is.
I love him so much. I can't stand it.
Tina, the reason why it works for me is like if I speak for my buddies here, it takes place at a time when we all grew up with monster horror hosts, right? They introduced the show, and those days are gone. Sometimes they're kind of coming back in a way. It's a little more retro, but it's like that film was so great. It touched me and my heart because I could relate to this kid, and he's bringing his girlfriend up there, and
right,
trying to make out a little heavy, little light petting and stuff, and you're watching this horror movie, but then. Just got this creepy vampire next door, and then he's
not really that creepy. He's kind of look. I'm a straight male, but he's kind of young.
No.
Oh my God.
I know. It's like bite me, please.
Right.
What I meant to say scary. It's scary, and
he's scary when he's scary.
Right.
Yeah. He's super charismatic. He is.
Yeah.
Right. What I loved about it for me was Roddy McDowall's character was Peter Vincent. And he's the one that was like the old horror character. And he was like introducing these TV shows, right?
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with that. So growing up in Dayton, Ohio, we had a guy that was, he introduced all the TV shows, and it was Dr. Creep.
Dr. Creep. I love Dr. Creep.
Dr. Creep from Dayton, Ohio. And he used to drive around in a hearse.
No.
And
he has the pancake makeup, right?
Oh yeah, he had the white makeup and he had like the black eyes. He looked kind of like a ghoul, but he was like kind of the mascot, if you will, of Dayton, Ohio.
Oh,
and I grew up watching him, and he would introduce all the late night stuff, all the like, you know, Vincent Price movies, and again, Lon Chaney and Christopher Lee, and he would do the hoo ha ha ha. Yeah, which I'm so bad at doing.
Yeah, but, Sean turned me on to this guy.
Yeah,
that's right.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
Yeah. I love him. I love him.
Yeah.
So I'm sure probably every area, like wherever like you grew up, had this person.
Right. Yeah. Regional.
Our guy, and that's
even horror hosts.
The McDowell character.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, Friday night we had Tom Holland, the director of the movie, on our podcast, and that movie worked because the studio left him alone and just let him make a great movie the way he wanted to make it. And he had the best effects team at his disposal, and it was just it was just fantastic. It really
I recently rewatched it, and one thing that was remarkable to me is that there's one sequence. I think it's when the Amanda Beers character is dying when they're destroying her. And Peter Vincent McDowell, the camera holds on his face while it's happening. And he was cynical. He didn't believe any of it. Now, not only does he believe it, but he's horrified and at the same time compassionate and in such pain that he's going through this. And it's heartbreaking. It's like, my God, what a great scene because of McDowell and the direction.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's that scene with Evil Ed, too, where he's just living every moment.
How can you not love Evil Ed? He's like the underdog. He's that dude from every senior class that's like that dude that's beat up on. That's just
in the alley when Jerry Dandridge tells them, you know, they won't pick on you anymore. You know, it's all going to be fine. It's like, you know, that's it for.
I think it's beat for beat perfect in my view.
Yeah.
And I did not feel that way about the remake.
I did not either.
Yeah.
I did not either.
I don't think anything worked about the remake, actually. No. And it was a pointless remake. In fact, so much to the point where you could tell, because horror hosts don't exist anymore, they had to create this kind of a, Chris Angel mind freak character for David Tennant?
At all.
Which is terrible.
Yeah. Why would you go to a magician, a stage magician in Vegas?
No sense.
You know what I thought would have been better in that film is that there's a guy who has like a paranormal activity, like reality TV show.
Or a website or a podcast or something. Yeah, right. Anything. I know. Yeah. I will say, too, that movie that doesn't get talked about a lot, which is, of course, it's not as good as the original, but Fright Night 2 is not that bad.
No.
Fright Night 2 has great special effects as well. And basically, it's Jerry Dandridge's sister that goes after Charlie. But it's got some great effects. There's the same kind of the humor, you know, mixed with the horror. Some of it doesn't work, but it's actually fun. And she turns into a really cool bat vampire at the end. There's it's fun. It's not, you know, obviously you're going to be a little disappointed from the original, but I think Fright Night 2 is not a bad.
I'll watch that again.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Cool.
Yeah, I need to check that out again.
Yeah.
So which brings me into our next one. So again, Let the Right One In. Versus the more updated version.
Let me in.
Yes, which
I've only seen the original. I've not seen the remake, the new version.
I saw the original, which I loved. And I don't think I lasted long for the newer one, just because the character, it was like this cute blonde girl, and the original was more
just more interesting.
Yeah,
she was more haunted. She was more
yeah.
Could you
can
guys
tell when it's an American version, they make the girls like super cute. And
Chloe Moretz.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But can you tell me what Let the Right One In for listeners? What is this one
Let
about?
the Right One In, you guys.
Yeah. What is it about?
2008. It was a Swedish romantic horror film directed by Thomas Alfredson, and it was based on a 2004 novel, which was also by the same title. So it's about this boy who's 12 years old, and and who can't relate to this? He gets bullied at school.
Oh, yeah.
And there's all of a sudden this person that like kind of takes him in and relates to him, and he starts kind of lamenting how he's gonna, you know, take these people out, and she takes him under his wing, and that's And
she's a 12-year-old girl who lives next door.
She's a 12-year-old girl.
Eternally.
Yeah, eternally.
Right.
Yes.
And I got to tell you, though,
12.
you guys, she's 12, but she scared me.
Yeah,
Yes.
she was really good.
Yeah.
Actress is very
But
good.
I also fell in love with her too. Like there's that actress I think is brilliant, and that performance of balancing, the world weary, age-old vampire into the innocence of this little
and
girl.
she wants a friend.
Yes,
she wants a friend.
Right.
And I don't want to give away any spoilers because it's so great. But
it's a great film.
But yeah, she has to be able to understand the youthful mindset to be able to strike up this connection with this boy.
Yeah.
And it's done so well. I did see the remake. I did like it because I thought it was actually pretty true to the theme and the feel of the first one.
Really?
It's just, I liked it, but I agree with you about the casting. And I do feel like, when something's perfect, do we really need a remake?
Yeah,
right?
That's the thing.
Right?
Yeah.
No.
And again, is the remake, is it because we're a little older and we, they do the remake for the younger generation, maybe.
And subtitles, people are like, I don't like subtitles.
Right? Oh my God. James and I had this conversation. So many of the movies I watch now are subtitled, but people can't get over that. They can't, move past.
I'm hoping now with the popularity of something like Blood Red Sky, where, you've got streaming offering so many different movies from all over the world, where now it's hopefully a lot more acceptable to Mr. and Mrs. Front Porch to see a movie with subtitles. So Hollywood doesn't have to automatically make a remake.
Yeah.
Right?
And Blood Red Sky is a good example of kind of easing you into subtitles, because when people are speaking English, because some of the cast members do speak English, it's English.
Yeah, it's a mixture. It's happening.
Okay.
So it kind of eases you in a little bit.
I'm still kind of stuck on the whole, hey, who amongst us at 12 wouldn't want that pretty kid next door, to come over and go, hi.
Yeah, I would be a vampire familiar to this day.
Right? Matt, I would go like that. Okay.
Yeah,
hang on. Bye, Mom and Dad. Going to Romania.
But don't you guys ever get sad? Like I get sad when I think about when I was a kid and you had 3 or 4 channels. And so you had to watch all these horror films. And now every Halloween, I try to find those movies and they're not there. If you don't seek it out, then how do you?
Sure.
I mean, Turner Classic Movies is pretty good at,
every Halloween.
You just have to look harder for some of the stuff.
We had, when we had David Scal on, I mean, he had done this book. With Turner Classic Movies about great films to watch at Halloween, and Turner Classic Movies does a wonderful job through the whole month of October, trying to have at least 5 or 6 monster horror movies or sci-fi movies throughout a day throughout the month, and they list them. And Matt's right though. That's kind of like one of the only places that I can see them. I think what I was doing, I was combing through the channels, and I came across, how on the TV it shows the title of what it is you just came across, and it said The Thing, and I'm like, oh, The Thing, classic Thing, and I'm thinking I'm watching the it wasn't even John Carpenter's The Thing.
Nope.
It was the more recent one, which it has some things that are neat, but I'm like. But I was so
The only good thing about them doing high profile flashy remakes of classic horror films is that classic horror film will suddenly kind of become a little more known then,
That's true.
Well, introduce it to people that wouldn't know. Yeah.
Speaking of that, you were discussing Nosferatu.
Yes.
And so have you ever seen the film Shadow of the Vampire?
Shadow of the Vampire from 2000.
No.
Yeah. And it's called Shadow of the Vampire. And it's all about the making of Nosferatu.
Oh, I'm so
but go ahead, Matt. Yeah.
With Willem Dafoe as Max Schreck.
Yeah. And so the story is it's 1921. Murnau is shooting Nosferatu, but with some very strict instructions involving their main actor.
John
the mysterious Max Schreck. And so the instructions are it can only be shot at night in full makeup, and he must always be in character. And of course, this weirds everybody out. all the actors in the crew.
Like the whole thing that like he was really.
That's the idea. Is that you're wondering, is this guy real?
Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything. but it's so good and it's so fun, and it's one I know that critically it was kind of up and down, depending on who you were talking to. But I thought it was really effective. John Malkovich is Murnau, and then Willem Dafoe as Max Schreck, and I think everybody is spot on. Yeah. And I mean, you got and Udo Kier's in it.
Yes.
And Udo Kier plays Albin Grau, who was the art director, who was also an actual occultist. I don't know if you know this.
Really?
Yeah. So he brought some weirdness to it. But that's a really fun movie. If you've never seen it, I think you'd really love it, because clearly somebody obviously loved Nosferatu. And did it justice.
And I remember the whole William Dafoe thing, but I haven't seen it for a while, so I need to revisit.
To follow that up, everyone talked about, gee, why don't they remake Nosferatu? Well, they did. In 1979, Nosferatu the Vampire. It was actually directed by Werner Herzog, and it stars Klaus Kinski as Count Dracula, not Count Orlok from the original Nosferatu.
Right.
And the interesting thing about this is, on one hand, I remember the black and white version so vividly.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's tough to watch this one because it's color and they're talking. There are some really cool, creepy elements.
I like it though.
I do like it.
I think they do it. It's so atmospheric, and Klaus Kinski is a great Nosferatu.
He's spot on.
Isabella Jonti is great. It's actually,
and I love her.
Bruno Ganz. Yeah, it's really good. Several years later, they did actually a sequel to that movie called Nosferatu in Venice.
Oh.
And it was a really troubled production, and it was like Klaus Kinski was like just hell with the crew and everything. No. And apparently he didn't want to shave his head again.
What?
So he has long hair now, and the movie's kind of a mess.
I like Nosferatu with long hair.
Yeah, I mean he still looks cool, but the movie.
What happened? Like,
the movie's infamous though, because it had a lot of trouble production. It looks beautiful, but Christopher Plummer is in it. He's kind of like the Van Helsing character.
Yeah.
But Kinski got in trouble because he was like a little rough and too real in this love scenes with some of the actresses.
That's no good.
But it's kind of worth seeing as a strange kind of failed oddity. But yeah, there was actual sequel to that film.
Now I'm going to go out on a limb here. Some time ago, we had Doug Jones on our show. And
so happy you brought this up.
Doug Jones, if you recall, played the amphibian man in The Shape of Water. And when we had him on the show, this was a number of years ago, he had told us they had done these tests that he was going to play a Nosferatu and they was going to make a new film. Right. And Matt, do you remember this? And
I do,
I think he went on to do Shape of Water and then Star Trek and stuff. So I've been waiting, and I'm not really sure what the status of that was. Matt, do you know anything about that?
You know what? I'm not sure. I would have to look it up. I think it came out, or some version of this came out, but honestly, I'm not sure.
Wow. Yeah. That's a little bit of a leap, right? I mean,
it's the whole Nosferatu thing. But, in 1979, that was a big year for vampires, because that's also the same year for Dracula, 1979.
Frank Langella.
Frank Langella, directed by John Badham.
I like that movie a lot.
He had done Night Gallery, he did Saturday Night Fever, Blue Thunder, War Games. I mean, he was a huge director.
Yeah. Great John Williams score.
And beautiful John Williams score. And the neat thing about it to me is, we kind of know the story of Dracula and kind of how it ends. In many of these films, Dracula succumbs in certain ways. I just think what happens in this film is really cool. It was something I didn't expect.
Dracula's demise, you mean?
Yes, and at the end of this, and also, I think Tina, you're a lovely lady. Maybe you can tell us. I know Christopher Lee, people say he's sexy, but wasn't Frank Langella considered, like my sisters or my mom thought, Frank Langella. I remember the ad campaign was something about a romantic love story with a bite or something.
Didn't he do it?
Yummy. I've got blood in my tummy.
And I remember seeing this beautiful picture of it was Frank Langella lying down on the ground by this tree. The lady was there, and his giant cape. It was like a massive, oversized black velvety cape. It looked like it was like a giant bed, almost.
I'm sure there was some kind of undertones to that, but no.
You know what? I have to tell you this. My mom, she saw that movie, and man, she fell hard.
Did she?
Franklin Langella. Big time.
Like about Dracula, though.
I know, but it like awakened something in her that I'm a little uncomfortable with. But we got to a place where that's all she would talk about. And then so I went out and I found her the one sheet poster to the movie.
Right.
And she got it from me, and then they had it framed. And forever it sat in the laundry room in our house.
Nice.
So I guess that's where she went,
with the washer kind of like rattles a little bit.
Let's sit on the washer and look at Franklin Langella.
That's great. Hasn't Langella done him on stage too? Wasn't there a recent stage version of him, right?
I think so, yeah.
Well, the film, the 79 film came out of the Broadway version of the stage play.
Right. Is that right?
It was a big hit.
Right.
So that's why he was cast.
Kind of like Lugosi in the original Dracula. I mean,
there you go.
Yeah. But yeah, I like that. I like that one a lot. The 70s, that was 79. The 70s, I think, wins the prize, by the way.
Well, I don't know about that. So I'm just going to tell you. My favorite.
You tell her, Sean. You tell her. Come on.
I'm saying for the most vampire movies released in a decade.
Okay, that could be. I'm going to tell you one of my favorites.
Okay.
And one of my
Is it from the 70s?
It was 2014.
Ooh.
Wow.
Holy shit. Oh my God, this guy is so hot. I can't even stand it. Luke Evans, Dracula Untold.
Oh,
gave it like some kind of whatever rating. I'm telling you, it was freaking amazing.
I liked him.
It was the origin story.
I think it's underrated.
Where Dracula came from.
I think it's not bad. That was like going to be. That was potentially going to be maybe part of the new monster verse that they were rebooting with the Mummy.
Yes.
It was the first one. Yeah, it was before the Mummy with Tom Cruise, but it was kind of set up to be a possibility that he would be in modern day.
Oh,
but I like it. But they really
is he in your laundry room?
Oh my God! I wish. Are you kidding me?
There's a lot of CGI though. There's one effect that, man, they must have really liked it because they do it like every 5 minutes in the movie. But there's a cool effect where his cape is all black and it's flowing behind him, and it turns into black bats.
Yes.
But they do it 25 times. That's the only problem.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but
I didn't mind that.
It's not bad. It's just kind of it's not bad. I mean, I think it is certainly more successful, I think, as a rebooting of a horror character than the Mummy was with Tom Cruise.
We'll say that. Tom Cruise Mummy thing was like,
it was kind of a debacle. Yeah. So I agree. Yeah.
But Sean, you brought the 70s, and I'm just dying to hear what are your picks from the 70s that jump out?
I just want to say that once the 70s hit, to me, the 70s was, for the vampire movie, it was gore, sex, eroticism, and experimentation.
Yeah.
With a vampire.
All the things we love.
Films. Yes, because first of all, Hammer, who had already done lots of sequels, but now they were in full mode with going as far as they can with the sex and eroticism. You had 1970 alone, you had The Vampire Lovers, Lust for a Vampire, Countess Dracula, and Scars of Dracula. The same year, all from Hammer.
Can I intervene just for a moment? Let's talk about Dark Shadows.
The original
opera from
of course, groundbreaking, which only became a hit after they introduced vampires.
Yes, Barnabas saved the show.
Yeah,
absolutely,
for sure.
Yeah.
Played by Jonathan Frid.
And speaking of the 70s, the House of Dark Shadows movie is really good.
I love that movie.
It's kind of gory and scary. It's really
a nice encapsulation of the series.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and we are not for listeners. We're not talking about the Tim Burton version.
Oh God, no.
Go ahead, James. Go ahead, James.
No, I was going to ask Tina if she saw the Tim Burton version.
Oh, you know what? I got to tell you guys, I'm not a big Tim Burton fan. I don't like my things to be caricatures or cartoons.
I understand.
I like my shit too scary. I want to be scared.
I agree.
I feel like even though you're a hot Dracula, I want to feel like there's that element of
like Christopher Lee.
surprise of And you're hot, but at any minute you can
turn. Yeah.
And if you're gonna do a comedy horror movie, it has to be scary and it has to be funny. It has to be both, or else it doesn't work.
Yeah,
the horror has to
really
be
into that genre. Or if it's Hotel Transylvania. If you want to go like cartoonish, small kids. Oh, do you love Hotel Transylvania?
Whoa. No, hey, hang on there, Tina. I mean, I have a whole thing about that.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I love the whole Hotel Transylvania things.
It's super cute.
And the funny thing, and look, what's really cool about those things is they were done 1, 2, and 3. They're all done by the same director.
Right.
And, if you think about it, so Dracula, who's lived so long and he has this wife, they have this little kid. He tried to create a place where he feels that his kid will be safe.
Yes.
So we create a hotel where it's only just for monsters. And I love that whole thing. And the film, look, I'm not really the biggest Adam Sandler fan, but he does the voice of Dracula and he's actually really funny. He's really good. And it's a really heartwarming story. There's so many great people who play all the different little characters. But the thing I love is, so this girl wants to get out. She wants to get out and leave the hotel. What else out there, Daddy? And he said, oh, well, it's kind of scary. It's not really for kids, but you go. And he kind of fools her the first time. And so she feels like, all right, I'm not going to go outside. Humans are bad. And then this guy, this like older teenager guy, kind of falls upon this monster hotel by accident. And he meets the young vampire girl and they kind of hit it off. And I just thought it's really, really cute.
Sweet.
And also the funny thing is for people to chastise, oh, Larry, it's so stupid. There's a great thing about how all the monsters feel that humans hate us. Humans hate us, but when you get towards the end, they find out that humans are celebrating these monsters.
Isn't it that whole wrong side of the tracks?
Oh my God!
Wrong side of the tracks thing.
Yeah, and it was so great. It was so heartwarming. And then you have a great little message there. And look, maybe it's because I'm a dad, and I have a daughter, and she happens to be 16 now, and I'm kind of going through I don't know if I want her to date right now, or that kind of thing. But so I can relate to Dracula in this animated cartoon. But it's such a heartwarming film. And look, Matt, I know you're like laughing. It's so stupid. I think it's.
I saw that movie and I didn't hate it. It's not something I would come back to necessarily, but I thought it was cute.
Yeah.
And I got one for you. I got one for you then. Okay. If we're talking about Dracula for kids, we've talked about animated shows like the Groovy Ghoulies, where Larry doesn't like it because it's making fun of the monsters.
Yes.
Right. And so, and that show never really broke me up. But there is a show that came out in Japan that I just recently discovered. And it's called Don Dracula. D-O-N Dracula. It's based on a manga by Osamu Tezuka, who created Astro Boy and Kimba the White Lion.
Okay.
Wow. And it came out in 1982. And so this is the story. Count Dracula decides to move from Transylvania to Japan.
Okay.
And now he lives in a spooky castle with his cute vampire daughter, whose name is Chocola.
Count Chocola.
And she has it has nothing to do with, she doesn't do anything with chocolate, but she's called Chocola.
Okay.
And then there's also like a kind-hearted human servant, Igor. And then a bat who serves as kind of a Greek chorus.
Okay.
And so in this Dracula story, the Count isn't quite as suave. He's kind of a bumbling narcissist, and he's constantly seeking out hot women to suck blood from. But getting in the way of all this is Blonda, who is an overweight, not very attractive woman who was Dracula's first victim in Japan and is now stalking him. And if that weren't bad enough, Dracula and Chocola are being hunted by the famous vampire killer Rip Van Helsing. Van Helsing takes on a job as a teacher at the night school that Chocola attends. And he would be a very serious threat to the whole family, if not for the fact that he has a bad case of hemorrhoids that he suffers from.
Wow.
causes him excruciating pain and a case of the shits.
Oh, God.
So there's one episode where Van Helsing is about to kill Dracula. All of a sudden, he's overcome by his hemorrhoid attack, which causes him to jump up and go, ah, ah, ah. He runs around. He's trying to find a toilet, and he shits in Dracula's coffin. And he's so embarrassed that Van Helsing offers to clean and disinfect the Count's coffin. And
That's
so
awesome.
Dracula lives another day because of that. But I watched 3 episodes of this so far, and I'm hooked.
Okay.
I'm ready to go. It's the 80s and it's Japan. So obviously there's going to be some political correctness elements that you have to weave around. Larry, it's way better than the Groovy Ghoulies.
Okay.
I'm writing it down, Matt. James?
Well, we were talking about the 70s. We haven't talked that much about Love at First Bite from 1979.
No.
And
George Hamilton.
Guy Hamilton.
I love me some George Hamilton.
George Hamilton.
And Richard Benjamin.
Richard Benjamin.
Yes.
That movie really does work.
It works.
Really
it works
good.
Because they knew going in that Dracula and Renfield were going to be sort of the good guys.
Yeah,
and what they were really up against was the trappings of 70s society.
Right,
disco, drugs, pop psychology.
And all that
they
stuff.
were so on the side of like stripped down Frank Langella type passion, romance, and they stick to it throughout the whole film. That's what Hamilton is about, going after Susan St. James. Yeah. And there are some cringeworthy elements now. You've got some, uncomfortable. I don't know how many times, Roots has to be mentioned by black characters. And, and some uncomfortable gay stereotypes. But other than that, it's just it just works.
It's charming. It's really
charming. Is.
And Artie Johnson as Renfield is hilarious.
Yeah, it really is.
And Richard Benjamin is great as Van Helsing's great grandson, who's neurotic and so determined. And the thing about it is, you're also you empathize with him because it's that's me. I'm the schlub who's trying to get her back.
So just you saying that, James, I don't know if you guys remember. It just brought to my head. I didn't even think about it before. The Dracula series with Jonathan Rhys Meyers a couple of years ago.
Oh, yes.
Renfield.
Yes.
It was the African-American guy, big guy. I love the take on Renfield. So that's taken a whole different meaning over the years, if you'll look at Renfield. And God,
really?
I love that show. Oh, my God. I love that show so much. I was so heartbroken when it ended. But, I mean, and Jonathan Rhys Meyers, let's face it, he's a little guy. He's not the classically tall, dark, mysterious Dracula figure. God, he was hot. And the Renfield, oh my God, and the Renfield character, it's very interesting, which is one of the things I love about Dracula. There's always as time goes on, there's these different takes on him.
Yeah, there's so many ways.
Did you guys watch that show at all?
No, that was from 2013.
Okay.
I did a warm-up promo special for the airing of that show.
Oh, yeah.
It was called Why We Love Vampires.
And he had just come off of HBO's The Tudors. He played King Henry VIII, and he was so great in that. And this was, I think they kind of played a little bit loosely, I thought, with the rules of Dracula, like the daytime thing. And and I know Matt says, hey, just make it work for me, but I have a little issue sometimes, look, it's like if holy water gets on you, you gotta burn. If you go outside, you gotta burn. The stake through the heart.
There's something about it for me. There's certain stuff that just works. I don't know if it's a hot dude, whatever. And again, the premise was kind of dumb, but there was the underlying. I was hooked. I was sad when it ended.
Oh.
Well, talking about tropes, just going back for a second to Let the Right One In.
Yes.
One of the legends of vampirism is that you have to invite a vampire into your home in order for them to enter. And that's sort of the meaning of the title. And what that movie does, that no other movie I've ever seen does, which is, okay, if a vampire enters but wasn't invited, what happens to it? What happens to it?
They can't come in.
Great scene. An amazing scene in that film.
If it does come in, there are repercussions. So again, it's one of those things that you decide what to do with the tropes. And in modern vampire movies, you have a decision. You have the series of decisions to make. Is it the cross? Is it holy water? Is it sunlight? And everything is subject to all these decisions. So that's what's interesting about seeing the genre continue into present day. It's like, what do they keep and what do they throw away?
Yeah.
Okay. And again, so now I'm going to revert to my 15-year-old mentality.
Okay.
Vampire Diaries on the CW.
Is that good?
Summer Holder, Paul Wesley, Nina Dobrev. I love that.
You
show.
like that?
I never saw. I always knew about. How long was that series on?
It was on 5 or 6 years.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
I mean, I always knew about it, but
I watched every season.
So what was the take or the take on that?
It was the cute girl going to high school and her parents died in this car accident off this bridge and she was in the car and somehow she lived and she remembered there's this guy that saved me and it was a vampire. And then all of a sudden he knocks on her door and he's got like the evil brother. And it's just this, it's like a teenage thing.
Sure.
But it's that whole, when he goes to her door, which reminded me of saying, he goes to her door and she's like, oh, do you want to come in? And he's like, no, you have to invite me in.
So was it kind of tongue in cheek? I mean, I know Buffy the Vampire Slayer series was a little more comedy.
It's got to be like CW's, like, little. It's again, it's my inner 15-year-old.
Yeah,
but I get it. But they're cute guys, young, and again, it was one of the most popular shows on the CW when it was.
That's true. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Did you like Twilight as well?
It's funny. I read the books, and I watched the first 2 movies, maybe, and it was a little sappy for me. I kind of like to have a little.
Oh, Tina, you got to go all the way. Come on, you can't just. That's like saying, after Empire Strikes Back, I didn't like how it ended. So
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Look.
Star Wars. If you weren't hooked by Star Wars, you probably weren't going to get into the rest of it.
Okay, easy there, pal. I'm just saying. I'm just saying that if you've gone halfway, you should go all the way.
Right.
I know. I'm just.
I admit I've never seen those films. I mean, look. How are those movies looked at now, though, with time? I mean,
that's a good question.
It's really interesting. I have friends who are fanatical about them, Sean. And I will say this:
friends at what age? Friends
my age.
That's true. Really?
And let me just tell you, if you guys want to like make fun of it or whatnot, the first film. The director, she was promised she was going to get a lot of money, and then they pulled back, and so she was very limited with the budget. Yeah. And what she did, what she did with what she had, I thought was really amazing.
I've seen sequences, I've seen scenes. I remember seeing some with like some of the worst CGI werewolves I've ever seen in my life.
True.
I remember.
That hurts.
Yeah, like. I don't know. I think it'll be a long time before, maybe after I've seen every other single movie in existence, then I might visit that series. But I have other things to watch right now.
You know what, Sean? Here's what you do. So what you do is at your home, you smoke some reefer. Then we put on some of these. Hey, let me watch this now. Let me.
Hey, Sean.
Why do I have to smoke reefer?
Well, because that makes you relax.
That's the only way to enjoy Twilight.
So you have to. So he has to be artificially relaxed.
Well, that's Sean. That's Sean. I can watch it without having to be so relaxed. I can be.
Okay, guys. Seriously though, isn't there something that gets you about each of these? Whatever genre it is, whatever. If it's the CW, if it's the older movies, there's something that gets you, right? There's something that you connect with deep down, and isn't that what Dracula's really all about? There's this part of him, and he's this mysterious figure, and he's handsome, or there's so many different parts of him that kind of we all relate to, right? Don't you think?
He can masquerade as human.
Yes.
But he's not,
Don't we all kind of masquerade behind something?
Well, I don't know.
What do you know?
Come on.
That's what I want you to think about. Don't we all kind of hide some kind of aspect of ourselves?
Larry, you want to answer that, Larry?
No, yes, I will, sir. I would say this to you, Tina. When I look at Dracula, I see this very suave, sophisticated, intellectual, charming guy that I would love to be like, have all the women go, hey, he's so sexy, but I can't be that guy. And yes, as a kid. Room. So look, at Halloween, I did dress up as Dracula because I thought that would be great. Because I wanted to be that sexy, suave guy. So it's not so much me pretending to be someone else. It's like, gee, I would love to emulate, be like Dracula. But I have a question I would like to ask all of you.
Okay.
And I don't know, maybe Sean and we got in a disagreement a while back. So vampires. Vampires and Dracula. You know me. Come on. I've never let anything go. Some people feel that vampires or Dracula can have sex. I think the other thing is they put on this persona and try to be suave and debonair and stuff to get to bite your neck. That's what they actually want. And they actually don't have sex. Yeah. It's just to drink your blood. So that's what's the curse is when you're Dracula. It's like you can be all sexy and suave, but you don't actually get to have sex because you
where did you hear this from? Is this a theory of yours or
no? I remember you saying that Dracula has sex all the time. I remember thinking, no, Dracula doesn't have sex. Dracula just kind of gets.
This is like this is like something I said an aside remark that I made like 10 years ago, and you're remembering?
Yes.
So okay. I said that vampires have sex a lot.
Yes, or yes, they do.
Well, some of them do.
Yeah.
Oh, tell me.
Well, I would like to mention,
for example.
Well, yeah, True Blood was all about that. I would also like to mention one of my favorite 70s vampire movie, which was Grave of the Vampire.
All right.
And Grave of the Vampire is great because it's a vampire who bites and rapes a woman in a cemetery and leaves her to die, but she survives and has a kid. And she has to raise the kid by breastfeeding him by poking her breast and drinks the blood from her to stay alive. She dies and he grows up to be William Smith, who's now vowed to seek revenge against his father who's made him this way. It's a great movie. Michael Pataki is the vampire and he's now masquerading as like a night school teacher, and William Smith tracks him down and they have this great fight. And so William Smith is kind of like Blade. He's half vampire.
That's right.
Yes. And half human. It's a great movie. And it all stems from this sexual encounter of this vampire's victims. I mean, I think Christopher Lee also potentially probably had sex with some women, even though you couldn't see that. Well, and all the Hammer films of the Vampire Circus, Vampire Lovers, they have sex constantly.
Yes.
So guys, let me leave you. What about this?
Don't leave us.
Don't leave us. Please, God, no.
What if you're just projecting your own feelings onto Dracula, right? We perceive him as this person. What if men are just projecting what they really want onto him?
Well, certainly individual filmmakers do that all the time.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. I would say
why that whole romantic thing and the gaze into the eyes.
And he's like the ultimate bad boy.
And just lets herself go, right?
And you can't deny the sexual elements in the original source material.
Absolutely.
And also in the original Dracula, he's after Lucy, and I don't think he's after Lucy just because he wants her blood.
Oh no!
It's very clear that he wants something
like
more.
A predator after
undertones.
Yeah.
Because if you really go back to vampire folklore, there's nothing sexual about it. It's all about not understanding how bodies decompose. There's no sexual element. We've created that, and why did we do that?
And Bram Stoker, I think, created that too, and to a point in the book. I mean, even Interview with a Vampire, that's all about the sexual allure of the vampires. And it's a whole, I mean, but you can go both ways. Like you have Nosferatu, who is this hideous rat-like creature, but you have also very animalistic vampires later on, like 30 Days of Night, and just like you can play it across the board. They can be complete ferocious predator animals, or they can be that hunky guy in the tuxedo. I mean, you can go
or the weird zombie vampire kind of hybrid in I Am Legend or Last Man on Earth.
Yeah, or they can be the vampire if you're a good person. It accentuates that. If you're evil, it takes that part of you.
Or you can change, like in Blade 2. how the vampires open up their jaws. And it's like,
so
but they can kind of appear kind of normal first. But I mean, there's so many different ways to interpret and present a vampire, So, but yes, I mean, some vampires have sex, some don't. But I think sexual attraction is a big part of it.
Yeah, and if you live forever, you got to fill up that time.
Do you know if I saw a vampire tomorrow and they were like, if I can bite you and you'll live forever, I'd be like, go ahead. Please. I'm sorry. You'll live forever. You'll be young forever. That's the part. That's
but very seductive.
Young forever.
Right. But if you're a victim, though, there's that one of the films that I've come to appreciate more now is The Hunger. 1983. And it is still, I mean, at the time it was criticized because it is a lot of like style over substance, which is true, but that style is great.
Yeah.
When you get Catherine Deneuve, David Bowie, and Susan Sarandon to look at for 2 hours, why not? But that movie, more than any other movie, the most haunting, disturbing thing in that movie to me is that Catherine Deneuve's, all of her lovers never die.
Right.
They wither away to almost being skeletons, but they're still alive and sentient and know what's going on. When David Bowie, he just suddenly starts aging, and she just has to. He's like this little husk, and she just puts him in the coffin next to his other lovers. She's like, to keep him company, my loves, and like they're all there in the attic for hundreds of years, still staring at nothing, and they're alive. That's terrifying.
Yeah,
that's horrible.
That's haunting to me. But and that movie is full of sexual tension and sexual activity. In the opening of that movie is that great nightclub scene where the Bauhaus is playing Bela Lugosi's Dead, and they pick up the swinger couple with the intention of having sex with them, and then of course they slit their throats and drink their blood. But that's a very sexualized vampire. In that movie.
Well, in terms of Bram Stoker, though, my interpretation of what he was intending to do in the Victorian time was not so much that Dracula himself was a sexual predator, but the effects that he had on his victims versus Victorian society. Like when Lucy's behavior after he turned her was so taboo and so shocking. It was Lucy's behavior and her image that was shocking, more even so than Dracula himself.
Because he's supposed to be the villain.
Yeah.
Right. Often you had the Dracula's brides or his victims were kind of the more subhuman versions of him in a way. Yeah, they were like always Yeah.
Well, thank you, Sean, for explaining that.
But I think we're both right, Larry, in that some you're right. I think it is just the blood, and others totally is more sexual thing.
Well, along these lines, have you guys seen the film Only Lovers Left Alive?
No.
It's a Jim Jarmusch movie.
I think you've told us about this before.
And it's really good. Just the way that the film unfolds, it's pretty subtle, and it's more of a character examination. But I really thought it was great. And it really gets into the things about like being a vampire and how you deal with that immortality, and do you get bored, and do you eventually find life tedious? And anyway, so like the basic story is there's this centuries old vampire named Adam, and it's Tom Hiddleston.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Loki.
I love him.
And he's brilliant. And he becomes despondent and suicidal due to his disillusionment with immortality and having to live beside humans who he calls zombies.
Right.
And Adam is he's this famous and influential musician living in Detroit. And he has to balance his fame with his fear of being discovered as a vampire. But due to his fear of drinking 21st century contaminated blood, he doesn't feed on people. He prefers to get clean blood from these various suppliers, which he calls the good stuff.
Huh. That's a cool idea.
That's great. Yeah. And then so one day he gets a call from his mate, who's Eve, and she's Tilda Swinton.
Okay. Oh,
wow.
And who's also brilliant. Yeah. And she's been living in Tangiers, and she talks to him and senses that something's up with him. So she flies out to Detroit, try to cheer him up. And it works for a while, but then Eve's rebellious younger vampire sister shows up, and she makes a mess of everything. And it's great because you examine vampirism from a younger aspect to someone who's been in the game a little bit longer, and the different types of personalities. And as part of the plot, both Adam and Eve are longtime friends with Christopher Marlowe. Yes, that Christopher Marlowe.
Way.
Played by John Hurt.
Okay.
Huh.
And if I told you any more, I'd have to turn you into a vampire. Okay. So I'm not going to do that. But it's so good.
This must have been like one of John Hurt's last roles.
Yes. Yeah. It's and he's great. And there's a lot of cool stuff in it. Like, for example, Adam has a bunch of contraptions to power his home that are based on technology by Nikola Tesla. So it's like, he picked up all this knowledge during his lifetime.
I like the idea. I like the idea that in modern times we've kind of fucked up our bodies so much with like chemicals and shit that
he can't drink the blood.
Can't drink blood. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and that plays a very important part in what happens in the movie. But also, if you like the band White Hills, they appear in the film, which I do. But it's I'm telling you, it's not, if you're looking for a fast-paced kind of action, scary vampire movie, this isn't really it. It's more of, it has more of an art film kind of feel, but in a good way, in a thoughtful, intelligent way.
I've not heard of this. Okay.
So good.
Cool.
Well, along those lines, The Addiction from 1995 from Abel Ferrara.
Is that any good?
Who did Bad Lieutenant, Thriller Killer, Miss 45. It's worth seeing just to get sort of a modern, independent, downtown New York take on it.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's black and white. Lily Taylor plays a role who gets initiated into vampirism.
Right.
Yeah. And she sort of disappeared. I liked her a lot.
She did disappear, right?
Yeah, what happened to her?
Kinda. I know. She's still acting, but not in stuff we've really seen. But she's an NYU psychology grad student who, once she becomes a vampire by Annabella Sciorra, she just, she starts taking on the traits and developing a taste for blood.
It's like an addict. It's like she's a heroin addict. I mean, it's like you follow the
right. And Christopher Walken is the main reason to see it for about 10 minutes. He's okay, and it's a great scene.
Great.
But, not necessarily recommending it, but it's an interesting take on how vampirism is a parallel for addiction. And again, a 1995 take, trying to do something different with vampires. That's
the James GONIS recommendation.
Yes.
Well, some of these are hit and miss, and
some movies have elements in them.
Yeah, that's how I remember that one.
Yeah. Again, the whole vampire thing. How many different ways can you interpret it? A lot. So it's
right.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a great film that from the 70s that doesn't get enough love, I don't think. It's called Lamora, Lady Dracula, from 1973.
I love that movie.
Beautiful, haunting, claustrophobic film. It's
almost like a fairy tale.
It is. It's like this young blonde, I think it's Cheryl Rainbow Smith, who is this young girl who's just lured to this woman's house, Lamora, and she's a vampire, and she wants to kind of just take control of her and kind of eventually turn her into undertones? Yes, very much. Yeah, but not explicitly. It's very subtle, but it's really beautifully done. It's really one of my favorite female vampire portrayals. It's really good.
And people make fun of the makeup in that, and I think it's great. There's a primitive quality to it.
But it works. It's a little budget.
It works. Yeah.
And it's this kind of town that has these kind of weird, kind of zombie, kind of almost werewolf-like.
I don't know what they are, but
it's very hard,
scary.
Hard to describe the movie, but it is like a little bit of a fever dream. Like you watch it late at night, and it's good though. It's really worth seeing.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Lady Dracula. There's another female Dracula thing that I saw growing up that really affected me. I thought was really cool, and that's from 1936, Dracula's Daughter. And
and I like that movie a lot.
Dracula's daughter in this is not so much the terrifying vampire that you'd think. Originally, she feels that she wants a normal life, and she feels if she destroys the skeleton of Dracula, then she can go off and live a normal life, and it doesn't really work out. She tries to get a therapist to help her. But there are some pretty creepy things in this film, and some people have suggested some of it is like there's some lesbian-esque stuff in it. This is 1936.
Wow.
And
there's subtle.
It's subtle. And guys, what was interesting was Universal wanted James Whale, who had just come off doing Bride of Frankenstein, to direct the film. And he said, you know what? I'm waiting. He was waiting for another actress to finish her film before he could do this one, and then he was going to do Showboat. Well, that prolonged it, and then what happened was it eventually went to a different director, and that was Lambert Hiller. And what's weird is Lambert Hiller. He did do what was it? He did The Invisible Ray and Dracula's Daughter, but those are the only two like horror type films that he did. But I thought he did a really neat job.
Dracula's Daughters is all kind of mood and subtlety, but Gloria Holden, who plays Countess Zaleska, is
creepy.
Great.
Yeah.
Great, but kind of beautiful too and creepy, and it's
very deep voice.
It's kind of classic old Universal, but
I want her to pick me up and just carry me away.
It's actually very haunting.
But I felt bad for her though. There are times
she's sympathetic.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think we can skip Blackula.
Blackula.
William Marshall.
And the sequel.
Yeah.
Scream, Blackula.
Both are great.
Yeah. That I would throw in the two Count Yorga films too together in that universe.
We've talked about this. They feel like they all fit in the same universe.
Yeah, and the Death Master, which is like the
Death Master
guru vampire.
Have you seen that, Tina?
No, I have not.
Oh, check that out. Yeah,
it's
almost like Count Yorga 3.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But he's like a hippie guru that lures.
Yeah, like lures a bunch of hippies into like being in a commune, to being a vampire.
Yeah, it's a pretty clever concept.
Okay.
Yeah, can you believe it that they're remaking Blackula now? By the way,
are they really?
No. They're doing a new version of Blackula. Nobody's cast yet, but at the time it made sense. It was like blaxploitation. Like, what is the? I mean, maybe they could give it some kind of angle now. But
don't you think with like Eddie Murphy doing that movie?
Well, he did that. Did he do like Transylvania, Vampire in
Brooklyn?
I never saw that. But
was it he did about a guy that was downtown LA and was like, he did like a B movie thing. But anyway,
Dolomite.
Dolomite is my name. Yeah.
Rudy Ray Moore.
Which is great. That's great. But
if they do Blackula, a new one, I hope they don't do it as a joke or
I hope not. Try to make it concentrate on who this guy was, because at the time I remember watching it as a kid, but it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't something that was big. You know what I mean? It was
it was a drive-in movie.
It was big in certain areas, and the director William Crane, he was a graduate from UCLA, and he was like a film guy, and he went on to do other exploitation films, like he did Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde.
And I like that one too, actually.
Yeah, and but the thing that I loved about Blackula, it's a different type of vampire where he's so dedicated to the woman he loves.
Yeah, it's a love story.
Without giving away the ending, what he does at the end is quite surprising.
Yeah. And William Marshall makes that movie.
William Marshall as
Blackula instills the character with the real life.
That voice,
surprisingly, a humanity.
Yeah, he's like this proud prince in the beginning, and like he's kind of he's kind of offended by Dracula treats him like crap, and to his wife, and it's like,
and that's the only part of the movie that's a little like, it almost feels like you had to have this scene, and then you could make a serious movie from that point on. But when they name him Blackula, that's kind of like, what did you call me?
But only been then, right?
And that's the only thing. You're right. From that point on, it's a straight vampire movie.
But Tino, and we've talked about this on another show. There's a scene in that film which still haunts me to this day, and was used in the credit sequence of Creature Features, a TV show. There's this woman who comes out of the morgue, and it's high speed, slow motion,
it's running one of his victims
down the hallway,
back to life,
running straight towards the camera, and with her fangs and the hair. And as a kid, that freaked me out.
Of you, right?
Oh, it did. Yeah. It did. And to this day, when I see it, it still is haunting to me.
Isn't it funny the moments as when you're a kid? There's a certain age, they even say psychologists, between a certain age and a certain age, those moments that you never forget. and it haunts you for the rest of your life, no matter what you're watching.
You can recall them instantly.
Totally. Oh yeah.
One thing about Blackula that I wish that they had done differently was the sound. The sound almost throughout the movie sounds like I wish that they had put the boom a little closer to the actors. It seems like it sounds cheap. It just sounds like bad.
Well, it was cheaply made.
It was cheap, James.
Yeah.
I know, but I love the credit sequence. It's one of my favorite credit sequences.
It is really good.
And the music.
So
the music's fantastic.
Yeah. And almost like a double feature would be, and I brought it up earlier, Ganja and Hess.
Yeah. That's like a more serious kind of.
Yeah. And it starred Dwayne Jones. And again, it plays with the addiction thing too.
Yep.
Because you got Dwayne Jones as Dr. Hess Green, and he's this anthropologist who's doing research on the Myrthians, which is an ancient African nation of blood drinkers. And so his assistant is a little off.
Yeah.
And his name is Mita, and he's played by Bill Gunn, who is the director of the movie, a writer and director.
Right.
Mita threatens suicide, and then Hess talks him down. But then later that night, Mita attacks him and stabs him with this Myrthian dagger. And then he kills himself. But the dagger, being stabbed with the dagger, turns him into a vampire. And from that point on, like immediately. So like Mita's lying there in blood, and he has to lean down and suck the blood. Yeah, and then later he meets Ganja, who is Mita's wife.
Marlene Clark.
Yeah, and who's gorgeous and wonderful. The acting in it is impeccable.
Yeah.
And they develop a relationship, and she finds out some stuff about him. And where this movie goes is really, really interesting. And one of the things that I guess you would have to, if you're a younger, more modern audience, I think you'd have to get used to the pace of it, because it's
like a little bit of an art film.
It is, yes.
And it's not, it's a lot of talk, it's a relationship story, but it's not like a drive-in horror film.
But again, guys, I mean, to really think about the horror movie genre and how much has changed over time. And the stuff we watch and young people today would be bored shitless. Seriously.
True.
That is, it's funny you should mention that, because I don't know how many times I have recommended a movie and they come back and they go, boy, that kind of blew. And like, what?
And you're like, what are you talking about?
You always have to put yourself back in the time and the
And sometimes it's age too. It's like, if you're a kid who doesn't like black and white movies, there may come a time when you will, but it's not at
my niece looks at a movie now that's black and white. It's like, Auntie Tina, it's black and white. I would just think about even people today, subtitles.
Right.
True.
Yeah.
And
that's why I think it's when anyone makes a black and white movie now. Yeah. That's pretty courageous.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Like, what was that movie with, it's a Persian language film.
You told me about this.
And it's really good. It's called A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. Yes. Yeah. Directed by Anna Lily Armapour. Okay. And it's described as the first Iranian vampire Western. So it takes place. It takes place in Iran, but it was actually shot in Taft in Kern County, Southern California.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Kern County?
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's good. It's black and white, and it's all about this guy, Arish, who's this hardworking guy living in this Iranian ghost town called Bad City. So you're in trouble already, and just trying to make his way through life. And life is difficult because he has to take care of his heroin addicted father, Hossein, and deal with this asshole drug dealer, Saeed. And so this woman, he meets this woman out. He goes to a party where he's actually dressed as Dracula, takes ecstasy. And then on leaving the party, all kind of screwed up, he meets this strange woman who takes a liking to him and ends up sort of making his life better and worse at the same time.
Oh my God.
And it's great. I mean, the cinematography is just gorgeous. And the woman who is the vampire wears this chador, which is like this Iranian one-piece garment that wraps around their face. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've seen this before, but when she's just out there in the street wearing this thing, it's so spooky.
Oh, okay.
And
I'm all in on spooky.
Yeah, and the black and white, and that's why it's one of those things. This movie did pretty well in like an art house crowd and art and people who appreciate art house style horror.
Right.
But I just wonder how when someone says, "Yeah, I'm going to make it black and white," you know that there's 9 people trying to talk them out of it.
I was going to say you're losing how much of your audience by that. Which is
back in the day, black and white was okay. We're doing it to save money. The studios were saving money back in the 60s. Right. Now it's purely stylistic because it's probably even more expensive to make it in black and white now.
Well, because when I'm a kid or when we were kids, if you've got 3 freaking channels, you're going to watch that black and white shit because there's nothing else on to watch. Right?
That's right.
It's not like now, there's like how many channels? Black and white. No, it's
and yet. The fact that they had less money to spend and the fact that, movies started in black and white, that there was an artistry to making a black and white movie, things you couldn't achieve with color.
Yeah.
Right.
And think about back in the day, how much money it took to make these movies and how much they made. Hence, I'll just leave you with this. I'm super excited for Halloween. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is coming out with a new version. So who knows what that's going to be. But when the original was made and it was made for less, it was like $300,000 or $400,000 or something. It was ridiculous. And
of course.
And yet still the best. That's
because it's scrappy and low budget and kind of like that's why it works.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it looks like
And that's another one. I understand why they keep making more of them.
I do too.
But yet at the same time, the first one's perfect.
Yeah.
You'll never get that type of movie ever again. You're never going to get a bunch of people in a farmhouse in 120 degree temperature and drive them crazy so you get the most unhinged performance ever.
Right.
Not going to happen anymore. Someone's going to call their agent.
Those results.
Yeah.
No. Right. Yeah.
Matt, you mentioned like the Western. Of course, I know we talked about it before, but Curse of the Undead.
Oh, have you seen that, Tina?
This is a Universal 50s movie, and it's basically this like gunslinger, this like bad guy who comes into town. He's a vampire. It's great.
I think that's a really interesting take.
Yeah, it's kind of like your classic kind of like Western showdown, but
I love Westerns, but I don't know that I love my Westerns mixed with my vampires.
But this is, I say though, give it a chance though, because it works. It actually works. The guy who plays the bad guy is really good. And the way they dispatch the vampire at the end is very clever.
It's clever, yes.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a lot of fun.
Yes, it has.
Oh
my God. We could go on for hours.
For eternity.
Well, what do you guys say we do like a lightning round? Throw out a few here. Okay. So Tina, why don't you give us a few?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you. Okay, let's start with Rabid. We didn't even.
Yes.
Lost Boys, yes.
Lost Boys.
I like it. About that a lot. Some people here don't like it, but that's okay.
And I'm going to really throw you off. You got to be a big fan for this. Let's Scare Jessica to Death.
You know that is one of our favorite films in this bunch.
Maybe in my top 5 all-time favorite horror films.
I'm with you, Sean. It's way up there.
Perfect movie.
It's perfect, and the vampirism it creeps up on you
the acting
in a
is
really
great.
horrific way.
You don't really know what's going on.
You don't. Exactly. That's the problem. You even at the very end of the movie, you still don't know exactly what's going on. That's what makes it great.
And it adds an element. That film adds that element of like when you go into a town and you don't know what you're dealing with and the locals.
Yes.
Isn't that the freakiest shit? When you go into some town, it's all these small towns. That's where things happen.
Yeah.
Again, Salem's Lot.
Right. Yeah.
Salem's Lot. Oh, and Near Dark.
On my list too.
Everybody.
Matt and I, it's so good.
That's one of my favorite horror films of all time.
That's the best shit-kicking vampire movie ever. Yeah.
But Tina, those are great. Look, this one's kind of a guilty pleasure because anytime it's on TV, I watch it. Okay. From 1996, From Dusk Till Dawn. That's Robert Rodriguez directed. I mean, look, Quentin Tarantino wrote it. Look, you got George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino. I mean, and I know, man.
It has some CGI that's not good,
but there's some fun stuff. The whole contraption of the power tools that they use, and
you have to be in the mood. Stuff. You have to be in the mood for that over the top Tarantino vibe. If you're in the mood, then it's good.
The problem I have with that movie is
of wine or like some vodka, and I'm sitting there and watching it. I'm like,
if you have some reefer, you'll like it.
I just think that movie's unbalanced. I feel like it's two movies being thrown together. You got the first half, which is like a regular Tarantino movie, and then they just tack on this vampire thing, which I like. Believe me. That being said, I still enjoy a lot of it. Salma Hayek.
Oh my God! I could just watch that scene over and over again.
I've never seen any of the sequels or the TV show. They made a TV show out of it.
Yeah, that's right.
And I've never seen any of those. I'm curious. I'm guessing they're not as good as the original, but
and then, Sean, you mentioned from 1998, Blade with Wesley Snipes.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, Marvel Universe super vampire kind of
right.
And then to top it all off with from 2003 and the whole franchise, Underworld.
You know what, Larry?
That's a series I have not seen any Underworld film.
You know what? I got to say it's kind of good. I like my vampires to be scary. I'm not into so much the campy or the Underworld was good.
But
I agree with you. I like how really vampires are very
cool, and there's a battle between vampires and werewolves, and I like that whole thing.
Good stuff.
Look, and also they've tried to make it really cool and with the action, but also to make it look really cool. They do a lot of stuff with shadows and light, and I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, there's a color palette that they use that's consistent that I enjoy. I think it's nice.
Didn't they make like about 9 movies or something too?
They made a lot.
A ton of movies.
The first 3, I think, are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So there you go, Sean.
Okay. Well, I have several, but I'd have to say one of my favorite, even though it's a sci-fi movie, it's a great vampire movie, and that's Queen of Blood.
Oh
yeah. 1966. She's an alien vampire. Florence Marley is this alien that these astronauts bring aboard a ship, and she's from this weird race of aliens, and she's very creepy, and that's a great one. A crazy one that I enjoy because it's so ridiculous but kind of works is from 1977, Dracula's Dog.
Okay.
It's like a Doberman Pinscher that was like his like dog, and he helps revive Dracula. Yeah, that's a great one. I love Vampire Circus, which is a Hammer film, which is literally like a traveling circus of vampires and monsters that come to the town, take and go after people.
Underrated.
Yeah, it is underrated. Near Dark, you've mentioned. Talking about 1979 on TV, same year that Salem's Lot premiered on TV. There's another interesting film just called Vampire, which was potentially a pilot for a series with Richard Lynch, character actor Richard Lynch, as a vampire.
Really?
And Jason Miller, Father Karras from The Exorcist, as the kind of Van Helsing kind of guy who, if it became a series, he was going to like pursue Richard Lynch through the series.
Wow.
And it's good. It takes in modern day times, 1979. Yeah. And I really enjoyed that one. There's lots of Euro vampire films I love. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about the 60s too, is there's tons of European, like all other countries now are doing vampire movies. One I love is called The Vampire and the Ballerina.
Oh,
right.
Great film. Castle of Blood, Barbara Steele film. I mean, even Black Sunday, you could say, has vampires, and that's a classic.
Oh, definitely vampires.
Black Sabbath, the Wordalac episode segment with Boris Karloff is great. And there's tons more, but those are just a few other titles.
James?
Okay, well, here's a couple of early Lugosi movies that I always had trouble telling one from the other. One of them, Mark of the Vampire from 1935. Mark of the Vampire, directed by Todd Browning, basically a remake of London After Midnight.
Right.
With Lionel Barrymore, Lionel Atwell, and Carol Borland playing what seems to be Dracula's daughter. And these images have been, imprinted. There have been many images used. It was shot very atmospherically.
Yes, it's very iconic looking.
Just like Yes, but just like London After Midnight, they're not real vampires. It's
right. Turns out to be a ruse.
To get a murderer to reveal himself.
Right.
And then Return of the Vampire from 1943 from Columbia Pictures,
right,
where Lugosi plays an actual vampire named Armin Tesla.
Right, because he couldn't get the rights to do Dracula.
Right, but for all intents and purposes, this is more of a sequel in spirit to Dracula than even Dracula's daughter, because Lugosi's playing a very Dracula-like vampire.
Right.
There's also a victim who he hypnotizes into believing he's a werewolf named Andreas, and it's a little disconcerting to see a talking werewolf.
A talking werewolf, right?
He's turned into a werewolf, but I kind of love it now, though. It's like he just talks very proper, and he's in a suit, and he's great.
Yeah, yeah, and I almost regard it as universal canon in a way, even though it's a Columbia picture.
You're right, though.
And then there's Isle of the Dead, not to be confused with I Love the Dead, which just sounds similar. From 1945, which was a Val Lewton production with Boris Karloff as a Greek general on a Greek island who has to quarantine all these people on the island because he believes that one of them is an evil female vampire spirit called the Vorvolaka. Martin Scorsese has called this one of the top 11 scariest horror films of all time.
Okay.
I frankly got a little lost in the plot because I wasn't exactly sure what was going on, but atmospherically it's beautiful. Also, Toei Studios adaptation of Marvel Comics' Tomb of Dracula from 1980, which is called Sovereign of the Damned, which is a really interesting story. Again, it comes from the Marvel Comics arc, but you have Dracula moving to Boston for a while and rescuing a woman who's promised to be the wife of Satan from a Satanist cult, and then having a baby with her. And then the baby himself has supernatural tendencies. And it's really very, very interesting as a take on the Dracula legend, because he falls in love with a woman and is invested in this relationship, and even as a kid, it's definitely worth checking out. It's different on an emotional level. And then finally, from Hong Kong, Mr. Vampire movies from 1985 and 1986, where you've got these hopping vampires. It's comedies. It's action comedies, but they're clever and they're funny and they're nicely choreographed. So
there's like a whole series of them.
Atmospheric.
Yeah.
Very atmospheric. Yeah.
Cool.
There you go.
Matt?
All right. Well, I have quite a few, but I'll go through them quickly. And there is a movie that I watched just recently called Thirst. It's a Korean film from 2009 that involves a Catholic priest who undergoes this medical experiment that he volunteers for that requires that he get infected with a virus. While the experiment turns him into a vampire. So he's a priest who's a vampire, and he's battling with his faith. And at the same time, the vampirism is changing him, so he's becoming more lustful.
Yeah.
And he ends up getting into this relationship with his friend's wife that doesn't go very well. But it's a great movie. Again, it's another one that is kind of long, and it's kind of a character piece, but stick with it, go with it. It's very satisfying. I loved it. And it was directed by Park Chan-wook, who did the Vengeance trilogy, which is Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, Old Boy, and Lady Vengeance.
Oh, yeah.
Good stuff. Really good stuff. And then I would also throw in a couple animated ones myself. There's two animated movies that I really enjoyed. One is from 2000, and it's called Blood, the Last Vampire.
Okay.
And then
I've seen that. Yeah,
it's really good, really well animated. And I would have that as a double feature with Vampire Hunter D.
Ooh.
Maybe that's the one I saw.
Which is from 1985.
Okay, yeah. One of them.
Both are great. Blood has incredible animation and is genuinely scary. Both involve half human, half vampire hunters, a la Blade. But both of them are really entertaining. And Vampire Hunter D has some of the craziest monster characters that you've seen. And it's just like a cavalcade. It's like someone burst open a monster pinata. I mean, there's just every variety of craziness you can think of. So those are both really fun. And then I would also have to throw in, when it comes to Japanese films, the Bloodthirsty trilogy.
Oh, yeah. That's on my list too. Yes. Yeah. Those are good.
All of them are great. It's a trilogy produced by Toho. All the films were directed by Michio Yamamoto. The films include The Vampire Doll, Lake of Dracula, and Evil of Dracula. All of them are great.
Yes.
All of them are atmospheric, well acted. The vampires are so spooky.
They kind of feel like imagine like a Hammer from the 70s, but done by Japanese.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
And I think Arrow Video just put out a beautiful box set of Blu-ray of those guys. I have.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah. I just got that for Dana Gould for his birthday.
Yeah, those are really good films that finally. I remember seeing photos of those like in Famous Monsters for years and years. I can never see these films. Like
I know.
What?
I know.
Three 70s vampire movies from Japan? Like, they're really good.
And all quality.
Yeah, really good.
And then I would also have to throw in, and this is going to be like a James sort of recommendation. It's not a movie that I love, but there's some interesting stuff in it. And I have a feeling you've all seen it. John Carpenter's Vampires.
Yeah.
With James Woods.
Yeah.
And it's kind of terrible in a lot of ways. They are the worst.
Fun, though.
It is. There are some fun parts, but they are the worst. It's a team of vampire hunters that are sanctioned by the Catholic Church. And the bad part about it is that they are the worst vampire hunters ever. Like the fact that they're alive at the end is amazing.
Right.
But there is some great casting. I love James Woods. And although Daniel Baldwin's in it, he's okay. But Cheryl Lee, Maximilian Schell.
Okay, Cheryl Lee makes kind of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, she's great.
And then Tina, I'm sorry, you wanted to say something?
Oh no, you can't. There's always some of these movies. There's going to be just certain parts of them that stick out.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, no matter how cheesy or whatever. It's
that's interesting. Like in the movie, there's a revelation about how vampires came about that I think is very clever.
Yeah, like an origin.
Yes.
It's actually Vampires, I'd say, is probably maybe the best of Carpenter's 90s films.
Okay.
Because he made a lot of weak ass movies in the 90s.
Yeah.
That's one of his better ones.
Yeah, I didn't entirely hate it. Let's just say that. And there's some great gore in it.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, we have to mention What We Do in the Shadows, the series.
Which love to watch,
is really fun. And it's the type of series where you watch the first couple episodes and you go, I'm not sure yet, because you haven't really gotten into the groove, and maybe they haven't yet.
Right.
But it's super fun, and it starts to hit a stride where you get to a place where it's one of those shows where he's like, I can't have this show end right now. I need more of this.
Matt, it's funny. How sometimes I don't like that comedy with the horror.
Sure.
But What We Do in the Shadows, for people who don't know, imagine like a reality TV crew comes in and look, there are these 4 people, they're vampires, just kind of follow them around.
Right.
And spooky or creepy or whatever, things happen, it's not always great. And there's funny, it's a comedy. And Matt, I have to tell you, I didn't know what to expect. And I started watching it and I started to crack up.
Wouldn't you agree that they do a really good job at the scary stuff too?
Yeah, they do.
The makeup is really wonderful. And, you're right. In a nutshell, that is the concept. It's the Odd Couple. It's the Vampire Odd Couple.
Well, and imagine
vampires and their human familiar share a house without driving each other crazy.
And imagine if you're a vampire all day long. It's not all glamorous, and there's some things that you got to do, or there are things that happen, and it's the reality TV part, and I just found it to be really funny.
And it's in the style of Spinal Tap.
Yes.
Right.
And what I also love about the show is that they add a different type of vampire, because you have these 3 traditional Dracula type vampires that follow all the regular rules, but then you have Colin Robinson, played by Mark Prokish, as an energy vampire. And he's this guy who just looks like a regular dude in a suit. And he sucks the energy out of you by being boring. And so he'll get some job, and he'll just talk to people at the job and just suck the life out of them. And it's so funny, and it's played brilliantly. And that's the other thing too, is the cast is all great. I mean, you got Matt Berry, Kayvon Novak, Natasha Demetrio, Harvey Gillian. And talk about the guest stars. Jesus Christ. I mean, they get everybody. They get like Dave Bautista, Paul Rubens, Tilda Swinton again, Wesley Snipes.
Wow.
My friend Arj Barker, comedian Arj Barker, Doug Jones. And it just goes on and on. But I'm telling you, this is fun. And it's been renewed for a 4th season, even before the 3rd season has aired. So do yourself a favor. If you've never watched that show, you must.
Oh, cool.
And the movie too. The movie's great too.
The movie is great too. I love the movie. And what's great is that so everybody from the movie, Taika Waititi, Jonathan Bruh, and Jermaine Clement, who acted in the first movie and also co-directed and co-produced the film, and they're all in it, they reprise their roles in the show.
Oh, cool.
So that's nice. You know, you get this little connection to the movie. And I just love it. So there you go.
And I just want to top it off. When we've talked about movies and television, there's a lot of great Dracula or vampire products, whether it be toys or posters and masks. There, you know, in '79, we had talked about Nosferatu. Don Post came out with this beautiful mask for Nosferatu and the hands, and it was in the pages of Famous Monsters. It was like one of the most expensive masks.
Yeah,
and people don't realize that Don Post earlier on tried to do a Bela Lugosi mask. This is back in the 60s. And what actually happened, they didn't get a license from the Lugosi estate. And it was actually Bela Lugosi Jr. who had become an attorney that said, you can't do that. And so Don Post had to discontinue that. Now, since then, if you go and find a Dracula toy, if it looks like Bela Lugosi, check on it. It may have a little logo that says Lugosi Enterprises, which got an approval, which is what Sideshow Toys did with their 8-inch Dracula, their 12-inch Dracula. And
gorgeous.
And they're just beautiful. And probably one of the nicest toys that came out recently, Star Ace, and of course, Hammer Entertainment. This came out a few years ago, but a beautiful 12-inch Christopher Lee. And it's total vampire.
I have it. I love it.
Yeah, Matt, it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous toy.
And then Migo too.
And that's coming out. Yeah. So we have, it's so funny. We have more Dracula toys and products to come out.
It keeps giving.
Yeah.
Well, Tina, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
You really know your stuff too.
Yes, you do.
I now have a whole list, though, thanks to you guys, of all these other movies I need to watch.
Right, cool.
About Dracula, there's always all these new things to watch, and if we all kind of talk and keep in touch, we can trade these things.
Let's do that.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
No, thank you. You were a terrific guest.
Yeah, you can hang, man. That's for sure.
Yes, you can. Let's be monster friends.
Yeah. Now, is there anything you're working on? Something that listeners can check out? Or
I've been working on a couple of other podcasts, and then I'm guesting on some others. And
what are some of those?
The other podcast. Well, I worked on a dating one recently, and then there was another that I worked on for a couple of months, just talking about current subjects. And I've been working on a book, which people don't. People think about a book, they think, oh, well, you're talking about Playboy or whatever. No, so I've been working on a book. It's going to be Childless, Advice from a Child-Free Know-It-All. So I've been working on a little bit. And
I could use that.
I'm childless and I know everything. You got a problem with your kid, I'll help you with it.
Well,
unfortunately, in our home, I'm that kid. So
exactly. So
we look forward to seeing that book.
I enjoy doing, and as James said, just still working on the archaeology stuff. And
awesome.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I always am I love talking about horror stuff. So anytime you guys have me,
that's great, man.
We look forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So why don't we give a toast to our fabulous guests, Tina Bockrath and vampires.
Vampires! Tina!
Cheers! upcoming Halloween. It's around the corner.
That's right.
Trick or treating indoors. Woohoo!
Time for listener shout out.
Shout out.
Blah, blah, blah.
This goes out to Bob Farmer from Orient, Ohio.
Hey,
Bob Farmer.
The proud owner of a Monster Party logo glow-in-the-dark T-shirt.
Cool.
Bob
Good for him.
Bob ordered it from our eBay store, Monster Party store. And Bob, we want to thank you for your support and thank you for your patience. We know that this took a little while to get to you. Also, a shout out to Jim Moore.
Jim!
Encinitas, California.
More monsters.
More Monsters is his story. He's a sculptor extraordinaire. He's got an Etsy business where he sells his monster sculptures, which are beautiful. He's donated a couple to the Monster Party studio.
Yes.
And Jim Moore is the proud owner of a Monster Party cloth mask.
Nice.
Which PPE mask, which are still necessary for a lot of places in a lot of parts of the country. If you're going into, masks are still required, so that Monster Party mask is still a valuable commodity.
You can hide your fangs when you're wearing the mask.
And Jim does great stuff. I got a creature lamp coming my way. Thank you, Jim. Look forward to receiving it.
Beautiful item.
Yes, thank you, Jim. And if you're a Patreon member, along with your eBay purchase, you will get extra free stuff, courtesy of Biff Bang Pow Toys and Jason Lindsay, and creature maker extraordinaire and friend of the show, Ted Haynes, who's also donated some materials.
Beautiful stuff, too. Yeah. And hey, guys, I've got a shout out. I would like to give a shout out to my old boss and also Larry's old boss, Wendy Miller.
Hey!
Right.
Yes. Oh, she's great. She's a great friend and was a wonderful boss. And she has a podcast called Sex Ed the Musical, which is now in its third year. And it encourages women to be more adventurous, judgment-free, and open to new things in the world of sex and sexuality. It's fun. It has amazing jingles, leading experts in the world of sexuality, dating, LGBTQIA issues, sex education, and health. Plus, you get to hear her say all sorts of funny, dirty stuff. Nice. And it's available on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be heard. Check it out. But if that were not enough, she also has a book entitled 3 Secrets to the Happy and Healthy Relationship You've Always Effing Wanted.
Nice.
Fucking wanted.
Nice.
Anyway, as she describes it, having a happy and healthy relationship can be simple. So why do we make everything so effing complicated? You will find out with this book. She will give you concrete ways to improve that relationship. And I've read it. It's a great book. So I wish all the best to Wendy. And there you have it.
Nice.
Oh, and it's available on Amazon. Go for it.
Very cool. And if I can do a personal deceased artiste tribute for a moment, I found out that Jim Steinman, the songwriter, died a few months ago. And as far as this particular topic goes, it's relevant because he had done a musical with his songs based on the Fearless Vampire Killers.
Oh, okay.
Dance of the Vampires. The first rock record I ever owned was Meatloaf's Bad Outta Hell.
Still great.
And Steinman's signature kind of style was defined on that album. And you can spot a Jim Steinman song as soon as you hear it. But he was in ill health for a long time. Apparently, he passed away a while ago. So I just wanted to sort of throw that out. His songs did mean a certain amount to me. I enjoyed them a lot. So there you go.
Very good. R.I.P. Jim Steinman. And hey, guys, Monster Party has a thing called Patreon that we're part of. And Patreon, yes, it's called Patreon. And it's this platform where if you're a fan of our show, if you join Patreon, you will have access to all these wonderful extras. For example, there are bonus episodes that we create specifically for Patreon. There are shows like Larry's Toy Time.
Oh, yeah.
And Monster Party Masterpieces, where we show early works that we worked on, films and so forth.
But they're masterpieces.
But they're masterpieces. Don't get this wrong. Don't fuck this up. All of these are masterpieces, and it can be scientifically proven. So how do you get to this stuff? You got to join Patreon. And you would think that something like this would cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. Guess what? It's only $5 a month.
$5.
$5 a month.
You can't buy a pair of plastic vampire fangs for that price.
That's right.
No, yes. No. The vampire fang market is skyrocketing right now.
It's crazy.
That's where I got all my stocks.
Yeah.
Yes. So join Patreon and open this box that contains all these wonderful treasures. Jump in the box, close the lid, and just have a good time.
And let's remind our listeners that you can find us on Facebook and YouTube at Monster Party TV. Our Twitter handle at Monster Party HQ. Instagram is also Monster Party HQ. And whatever platform you're listening to us on, please take a moment, write a review. We would love to hear from you, and we will read a review on the air.
And not only will we read them on the air, but we will read them using only the word blah.
Blah, 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 blah.
On that note, I am Matt Weinhold.
I'm Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Stroth.
And I'm James Jonas.
Keep America strong.
Watch anything with vampires. Blah, 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 blah. What does that mean? Hey. Hi. Yes, that's Larry Stroth.
Oh, hello.
Hi. Hi. Hey.
Nice.
Love it.
Yes, you love it.
I
Did
love
you see
it.
my shirt? It's like Creature Island.
Oh, nice.
I want to just grab that shirt.
Okay, stop.
I mean, wow.
Little thing happened called Me Too.
Okay.
Pace ourselves here.
All right, now, calm down, everyone. Okay.
All right,
Okay, take it
great.
down.
Simmer down, everybody.
This is it's a sexy topic.
Oh,
Yes, it is.
yes, it is.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, the list. It's just.
You know what?
It's a big topic.
It's so. What's so funny is as I was researching, I forget how many great vampire movies there are.
Sure.
And I'm like,
Yes.
oh my God, there's this and there's this. How am I going to narrow it down?
You
But
can't.
I did.
That means we got to just do another round. You know. This.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
Tina, by the way, I'm Matt. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
I'm Larry.
That's Larry. And Larry, be careful about the yelling because we know that what it does with the mic.
Oh, I mean.
Well, I'm very excited that
Yeah.
Tina's
Okay,
with
that's
us.
perfectly fine.
And I don't know if James mentioned I'm, Matt and I we're like former Playboy guys.
True.
Yeah,
Yes.
He did actually.
Playboy
Do you
TV.
remember me though at all? Really?
I remember you.
I'm sure. Did you go to the Playmate of the Year party though every year?
Not every year, but a lot of years.
Yeah, because my team, we were always there. We always tried to get bits and pieces from other Playmates to say, we're so excited. She's going to be a great Playmate of the Year kind of a thing.
Right,
so
right.
Who knows?
Yeah, get excited. Yeah.
I enjoyed your Tales from the Crypt.
Thank you.
I thought it was great. I think it's a really difficult thing to do to play a dead person.
You know what's hard about playing a dead person is if you're like me and you wear contact lenses.
Oh no!
And they're
Yes.
like, you have to have your eyes open when they pull off the sheet, and there's all these
Terrible.
dust particles. Oh, yeah, it sounds easy, but not so much.
But I'm hoping we'll be able to talk about that during
We
the
will.
show.
Remember this story and
we
then just
will.
repeat
Yes.
it word for word.
See now we're all very
I'm going to bring Shawn in here. now.
Yes. Oh, thank God. Thank
There he is. Here's
God.
Shawn. He's the guy. He's the grease that oils our wheels.
Yes.
There he is.
Sean, is he the one that does all the voice stuff? Like he's really good with
no.
Voices?
No.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's Shawn Sheridan. Is that true, Matt Weinhold?
We're all chameleons, really.
No.
Okay.
We're all classically trained.
I think Shawn Sheridan is like just the
He's the rich little
of Monster Party.
He's the Fred Travellina.
What's going on?
We haven't heard from James yet. You know, James.
Yeah, and you won't be. And you won't be.
We're very close. We're very close.
This is it.
Tina, after I do your intro, Tina, you will not hear from me for the next 2 hours.
Okay, I resent that, sir. Look, you pipe in. You spin your stuff out.
You just cut them off, James.
You just cut me off. I'm and then you go, Lair, just shut up for a moment. Yeah. I want to say, and you just do your thing.
Yeah, just verbally pummel us.
Yeah. James, what the hell is in that cup? What did you just sip out of that cup?
You don't want to know. Those are like vinegar and sausage gravy.
Yeah, I'm like, what is in that cup? Because I don't have a fancy. I have a goblet.
Well, Tina,
listen to this. Apple cider gravy.
Yes. Yeah. There you go.
Now, what do you got? He drinks apple cider vinegar and what? Vodka, right?
And yes, and sparkling water. Sparkling water.
Okay.
It's no calories and it's healthy and
If you want to get drunk and get a cleanse, shit facing, clean as a whistle.
99-cent store.
Yeah.
99-cent store. Fun place at Halloween.
That's true.
Right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
What, the mug or the drink?
No. Yes, they sell vodka and apple cider vinegar
at the 99-cent store.
It must be some pretty cheap vodka, man.
Oh yeah, right. It's Larry the Cable Guy's vodka.
No, I go top of the line, Rite Aid.
Yeah.
$10 a gallon.
Hey, Sean, got your vampire cheese?
No, he doesn't. He thinks he's doing a podcast.
Those are cool. Those are cool teeth, though. Those are better than the classic cheap plastic ones.
Yeah,
and they're really great.
Like gingivitis. They look like gingivitis is going on up there.
Yeah. And they're really great for audio.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
The listeners can really appreciate.
All right. That's very funny. That's very funny. Well, Sean, thank you for being with us.
Who are you?
I decided I'd
is this House on Haunted Hill? What is this?
Wait, Sean thought he dressed for the occasion.
I did. Look, vampires and Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Yeah, it's a metaphor for vampires. Star Wars.
Yes,
everyone knows that.
No, right. The Vampire Strikes Back. Right?
The vampires.
There you go. See, that's what I always intended.
Boom.
Nice. Is that the new title?
Well, are we just calling this?
Hey, that's good. I like that. We should call it that. I like that.
Yeah.
Volume 2, The Vampire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Vampires Strike Back.
So Tina, just to let you know,
it doesn't kind of work with vampires.
I guess. Yeah, I guess the vampire as a whole.
Vampire, empire.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right. Let's do it.
Right.
Empire.
Like, human can mean more than one human.
Oh, sure.
But
are we calling race?
Are we calling it Vampires Part 2, The Vampire Strikes Back?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now you get your word and our word together. Perfect. This may be the greatest day of my life.
It might be.
Yeah.
Vampire Strikes Back.
Follow me around and you'll know.
So it's vampires.
Exclamation point. Space.
The Vampire Strikes Back. Because I say it after you say it. You know?
Well, I'll say it and then you repeat what I say.
I know, but I need to write it down because it's a long thing that you're saying.
If we wanted to make it even longer and in keeping with Star Wars, it would be Vampires Episode 2, The Vampire Strikes Back.
Okay, now we're getting confusing.
I kind of like that.
I like that.
What is it?
I always say Volume 2 anyway, so let's say
Episode
Vampires,
2.
Exclamation point, Episode 2, Vampire Strikes Back.
I'm a little wary about this because I'm actually thinking like Larry, that people will go, oh, it's the second episode of Monster Party. But go ahead.
No,
you guys do whatever you want.
You're right. Volume. It should be Volume
whatever
2.
I bend to the will of the crowd.
The vampire has decided to strike back.
Yeah.
No, that's too long. It's Vampires Volume 2. The Vampire Strikes Back.
A long time ago in a coffin far, far away.
You look how funny this is. Matt, it's writing itself.
It really is. I could go on all night, but I don't think Tina can.
No, I can.
Oh, you can. Oh, I take it all back. Here we go.
Well,
I will.
Tina,
all right, get ready for a 4-hour cavalcade of vampires.
Right. So, Tina, thank you so much for being with us. So, if you haven't listened to the show, just to give you an idea, what's going to happen is when we start, Matt does this little creepy voice. He introduces the show.
Yeah.
We introduce ourselves.
Okay.
We say what the topic is. And then we're going to say, and the guest and James is going to give you this great introduction. And that's when you talk after the introduction.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
Do not
a second before.
Just go.
Yeah. Yes.
Tina, you did listen to one of the episodes.
I
listened
did.
to the horror quotes.
Yes.
Oh,
that's a good one.
Do you listen to one?
That's a fun one.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Hey, James, are you doing James, you are doing the intro, yes? Or who's doing the intro?
Me?
Yes.
I am.
James is.
Yeah.
Don't give me that shit now.
Stop giving him shit, James. Are you going to do the I love it. I love it when your cam freezes.
And you're going to build it.
Mine?
You're going to Yes. You're going to build.
Stop, Larry. I will come over there and I will punch you in your microphone.
Well, I thought that he just needs a little,
No, he doesn't. He doesn't need anything. He knows exactly what to do. He's been doing this for years. You need to calm down. That's what you need. Sorry, Tina. We do this every show.
Oh my God! Look! Cheers! Cheers!
Cheers! Oh, well, I don't know about you, but I think Tina's having a great time with me. So, yes.
Well, stop telling James how to do his job.
Yeah. No, James doesn't know how to.
You hear what Tina said?
Knows me better than anyone.
Thank you.
I'm giving him
what are you, micromanagement?
No,
Mr. Micromanagement?
Yeah.
I'm giving him a little
Hey, Mr. Microphone.
Yeah.
Why don't you worry about your own mistakes?
I will. Mistakes? Excuse me, sir.
I don't have to excuse you.
Oh my God.
You can't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
So, hey. So, what do you say we get started here?
Let's do it. Yeah. All right.
So, okay. And Tina, one other thing. If for some reason, as we're going through the thing, if you say, "Oh, this reminds me of a photographer I worked with, and he was a dick," and I shouldn't say that. It's okay. Do we just stop and we'll just go back?
Yeah, this is edited. It's not like live.
Matt will edit it.
I will cut out anything.
It's a podcast, so I can really mean it if I say it right.
Yes. And
it's not 60 minutes. We're not trying to, there's no gotcha questions here.
No, okay.
Unless unless we're gotchaing a vampire.
Okay, got it.
Right. I noticed you've already posted something, which is
I did.
marvelous. Really appreciate that. And we will keep you posted on when the episode posts.
Yeah. We'll hit all our social media when we're posting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay,
yeah, that's wonderful. Much appreciated.
And that's two more things. One thing is, as we're going through, Tina, if for some reason you need to use the restroom or something.
That could happen.
Okay, I'm just saying, just go exactly. And then Matt will stop. And then we'll go do our business, come back and continue.
Isn't it nice to have a podcast with the safe word?
Yes.
Yes.
Somebody did a graphic novel just a few months ago, Legendary Publishing, on Bram Stoker's Dracula Retold. It's a black and white graphic novel. It's beautiful. Of the Bram Stoker Dracula with Bela Lugosi.
You mean Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula?
No, the actual Bram Stoker's Dracula, as if Lugosi was in it.
Wow.
And it's extraordinary. Cool. It's beautiful.
Fantastic.
I can't believe I fucking forgot to say it. Yeah.
Well, that's all right.
That's all.
That's
what it is.
We can include this in the extras.
Okay.
Did I ever tell you I once had a deal with Comedy Central to make something?
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the office with them, and it's the Comedy Central building, and it's actually a building that was made by the same architect as the World Trade Center, right?
Yeah.
And this is right after 9/11.
Uh-huh.
And we're having our meeting, and they look out the window and they see this plane, and they go, "Oh my God, hit the dirt!" And they all fucking like if there's an air raid, and they all hit the fucking ground during the meeting, and I'm just sitting there like this, like an idiot. And they're on the ground, and they're like, "Oh, I thought that plane was coming at us."
If a plane crashes, getting to the ground's not going to help you. I mean,
yeah, it was the most surreal, weird thing. I was like, wow, you guys are fucking scared. But
that's bizarre.
And I'm just like, what? Anyway,
that's bizarre.
Yeah.